All right, good morning. Welcome to Draft Day. If you celebrate accordingly, last night, I don't care what age you were or are, you went and you found the greatest bed sheets that were ever created. Some of us were lucky enough when we were a kid to have matching bed sheets and drapes that had all of the NFL logos.
I had a pillowcase with the team names and their normal writing.
Wow.
Jimmy, I had the bed sheet, I had the pillowcases, I had the, I guess you'd call it a comforter.
You have the pencils?
I had the pencils.
Yes. Oh
I had
God.
the helmets. I had the drapes.
Yeah.
That's how you should have celebrated the eve of the NFL draft. But we're on the clock. We're off to Green Bay.
Yes.
For some, this is the three greatest days of the season, is the NFL draft, which begins tonight. We are on the clock, or the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. This is a holiday for me.
I know you know what? I'll give you credit. You and Severe are probably the biggest local draft nicks.
Wow. I appreciate that.
Like
I appreciate
Severe,
that
good
compliment.
company.
Severe would, the first time I met Michael, he like rolled out a 7-round mock draft, and I was like,
Jeez.
who are you? But it was in depth. I mean,
And
like
tell
this
me
is
more.
this is like Michael's Christmas, and I loved. He went to the draft in Philadelphia,
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
and I mean the stories that he told. I'm like, this guy, and Michael knows his stuff, but he loves the draft.
So-
Like he might love the draft more than Mel Kiper.
So,
But I believe that Michael has gone to an ATM and has a cell phone. I know that for a fact.
Michael still has draft combine notes from like
Oh, yeah.
15, 20 years
That's
ago.
hardcore.
Which he never showed me, which I've asked him multiple times to show me. I was in his basement one time and I was like, I know they're in here somewhere. And he
Wow.
like, but he's
That's kinda rude.
him and I, so I talked about it yesterday. You have a draft pool.
Yes, I do.
I entered a draft pool
But I got
because look at, oh my Lord.
I got the whole breakdown.
I entered a draft pool because I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And I told you, well, this draft pool unfortunately isn't for money, but I'm going heads up with somebody. I'll just say it over the air. It's me versus Severe tonight. Okay. First 10 picks. We have bet lunch. So whoever gets the highest score in our pool ends up winning.
That could be a pick 'em. I don't know who to pick here. I mean, I want
think
to
I'm
go with
an
Severe,
underdog.
but
I think I'm an underdog. I'm
3.5?
I'm a plus 230.
okay.
I don't know what tools Severe is using.
Ooh, that's true.
But I am subscribed to
He could go box and one.
I am subscribed to, draft reports and whatnot. I pay a monthly fee to get certain things and certain information. And so I feel incredibly confident about my ability tonight 1 through 10. And funny enough, I've been texting you some of the odds that I were texting you in terms of what to bet. They have flipped in our favor. And so things are kind of trending in that direction. But as a Bears fan, and someone who's only ever seen one play, like I only ever remember one playoff win in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I think they've only won 3 playoff games since I've been born. This is a big day for me.
In your defense, I haven't seen that many Bears playoff wins either, and I'm a little older. I remember them.
Are we talking playoff wins or Super Bowl wins?
Playoff wins.
Okay.
I mean, they beat the Seahawks, the Saints, and the Seahawks.
I watched the Fog Bowl. They beat the Saints in 1990, and they beat Minnesota in 94. And I think that's it.
Laugh it up. Some of us aren't so blessed to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
remember, there was a point in the 2017 draft that people thought Patrick Mahomes would be drafted in the second round. And then what happened?
You traded with the Buffalo Bills.
But they had Alex Smith. They didn't need a quarterback,
and
did they?
Ended up drafting what may be the greatest quarterback of all time. And we took a quarterback to that draft.
We did. And fortunately, Patrick Mahomes turned out to be not Ryan Leaf or
He's
Jamarcus
okay.
Russell or Akili Smith, who I think are the 3 worst draft picks of quarterbacks of your first pick. There was a guy that was in studio 2 weeks ago today that I wanted to do the whole George Costanza, Ken Phelps, Jordan Steinbrenner, because I wanted to go after Blackledge. But we have our quarterback. We've won Super Bowls, just
plural.
Blackledge in 83 didn't turn out so well. 2 other guys in that draft turned out pretty well. But it's like the day where there is so much optimism, and there are parties like, I've told you, Richie and Papillion, this is the 10th year he's had his party.
I'm just living vicariously through you two.
He texted me exactly 24 hours from the draft last night, and he's a Giants fan. He's a diehard Giants fan, so it's a big day for him.
Massive day.
And he's like, I'm grabbing the cold cuts. I got snacks. You know the drill. The door is open in the backyard. Just come on in. We're ready to go. There's a group of us. But this is
everyone recites their favorite Parcells quote.
It used to be a cottage industry. Now it's just blown up to this big, big deal. And you got a ton of optimism. Jimmy, you should have optimism. I got optimism. Everybody
I'm trying.
has
I'm listening to you.
Who wouldn't have optimism?
Well, me.
Heading
That's his
into
point.
the draft.
I think if you're the Tennessee Titans,
yeah,
because you're like, what if Cam Ward doesn't work out? Does Warren Moon want his number one back?
See, that was the point last year with me, where it was, we know we're drafting Caleb Williams. There's no secrecy here. There's the nervousness of, and fortunately for Titans fans, they're not going to have to live with it. Mm-hmm. I do. There's a nervousness of, what if Jaden Daniels is incredible and Caleb Williams ends up being a bust? That would be a really, really bad look for us. It hasn't fully happened, but we are kind of trending in that direction. If we're being honest,
give it another year.
I'm not giving up. You know me. Have I given up on Caleb? I talk about Caleb all the time.
Supposedly he's coming.
He is coming. They're all coming. And then you're going to have Tyler Warren, who I think is a blue chip prospect, who's going to be joining
Indianapolis.
He's not going to.
Maybe you'll go Loveland when Genty is not there.
Oh my God. See, that's what I don't want. Like, I don't want them. Yeah, and then it's nothing to do with Colston Loveland. I think Colston Loveland is a really good player. I think Colston Loveland is going to be a good tight end in the league. It's just, my biggest pet peeve is when you draft a position and you clearly draft not the best guy in that position. Hence when we drafted Shane McClellan. Hence when we drafted Mitch Trubisky. Like, it just if we're going to take a tight end, take the best tight end. Take the guy who can line up at running back, wide receiver, slot wide receiver, tight end. Heck, he took snaps at quarterback last season. The guy is one of the most versatile weapons I've ever seen.
This should be a fun first-round draft. The first four are pretty much a given, from Cam Ward to Travis Hunter to Abdul Carter to
Cam Ward. Shout out Incarnate Word.
Yes. I mean, this is the reality is you're going to have guys that are on their third and fourth school, and when they show the B-roll of their highlights, they're going to show multiple places that they've played. Now, you don't ever see, like Shadur Sanders, they don't ever show Jackson State, him or Travis Hunter. It's all CU. Mm-hmm. But they
did some cool things there.
They'll show. I mean, they'll show multiple Cam Ward teams. But then when you get to 5 and Jacksonville is there, that's when this draft probably gets really, really interesting.
Duval.
I think Liam Cohen has taken the reins of this draft. I think that
insider knowledge.
Boots on the ground in Jacksonville.
I think.
Who are you talking to?
No, this is all I'm reading.
Matt
Everything
McJaguar.
I'm saying is I'm reading.
It's a station down there. It's a good radio. Jax 1019. That's a sports radio station there.
I forgot.
You've been listening to the podcast. If Doug Peterson was on a podcast, he said, if I was still the head coach, I would take Ashton Genty and I wouldn't even look back.
Shout out Tom Coughlin.
Or I would trade with Vegas and go back one.
James Gladstone is the new general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No relation to Joey.
He is formerly an assistant over with the LA Rams, who the LA Rams over the last couple of years have been known for drafting defensive linemen who have shorter length. Mm-hmm. Mason Graham is one of those guys. He has 32-inch arms. And so I think people were thinking, Gladstone coming from the Rams, they'll draft a defensive tackle who's highly touted with shorter arms, put 2 and 2 together. For a while, Graham was like a lock at number 5. But I think what I've been reading and what's been reported by Albert Breer and Todd McShay, it seems like Liam Cohen has taken the reins and that they are going to go with Ashton Genty.
Smart play.
I think Tet McMillan, his name was being thrown around at that point, at that area, but I think they're going to go with Genty. And then,
poor dude,
at this point, and this has been a report for the last week to about 2 weeks, everyone was tying Genty to the Raiders. Mm-hmm. The Raiders are probably going to go offensive tackle. Yep. I mean, it's Brady and Spytek. I mean, people have to recognize, and I think that there was a lot of hype, like, Pete Carroll loves a running back, this, that, or whatever.
Actually,
the Raiders have so many more problems so many more problems than getting a running back. I mean, a running back is a luxury pick, so they'll probably go tackle, is what I think.
Banks or the big boy from Mizzou. Then the Jets could really screw things up because everybody thinks they're going to take a tackle. What if they took Tyler Warren to help out Justin Fields?
What if they took Jalen Walker?
Well, that would screw Carolina.
I
Because then Carolina might have to reach and bring Walter Nolan into the top 10.
I think that I would love for there to be a stat of when a new head coach comes in and is dominant on one side of the ball, how often is the draft pick on that side of the ball?
Wow.
Because I would think that you have Aaron Glenn, who's a feisty defensive coach, that that he probably has a lot of say in who they're going to draft. I would think that you're looking at a guy like Jalen Walker, where if you're a defensive coach, I mean, with what I've watched, it's hard not to fall in love with his versatility and his ability to, be an off-ball linebacker and come off the edge too. I think Jalen Walker would be one hell of a pick. And then you're right now, Carolina's a team that they're saying really wants to trade out of that 8th pick. So
if Walker is not there, I think if Walker is there, you take Jalen Walker. You don't overthink it.
Everybody's talking about trading out. Like everybody wants to trade out of this first round and get a higher pick. Who the hell are you trading up for? I mean, like, let's be real here. Like, what is the difference?
Well, okay, so I'll give you.
Sure.
If Kansas City wants a particular lineman, I could see them jumping up. I have one of the trades that I'm very interested in. When the Rams come up to the Giants, who go Carter with their first pick, do the Giants find a way to trade with the Rams to grab Jackson Dart at 26?
So
payback for that 89 divisional loss.
I have Jesus,
double overtime. Flipper Anderson, he was awesome.
Those uniforms were fantastic.
They were
back in the day for the Rams.
I have one trade.
Okay.
In here. Or actually, I have 2 trades.
And you're only doing the top 10?
I'm only doing the top 10, but I do have some trades that involve the 20s. So I have a trade, the Giants trade with the Minnesota Vikings to 24. They go ahead. And by the way, this is all incumbent upon Shedeur Sanders 21 to the Steelers.
Yeah, I think we can lock that in.
Ooh, you think it's a lock?
I think we're going to lock in Shedeur Sanders to Pittsburgh at 21.
I could see it. I could see.
All right, play Renegade.
Where Cleveland or the Giants try and trade up ahead of 21, and where maybe Pittsburgh could trade from 21 up to secure themselves, maybe get up to 15 with Atlanta and take them at 15 as opposed to 21. I think that, though, if we're betting here, which I will be,
of course you will. Mixed Sportsbook.
I mean, come on,
Shedeur Sanders.
The sun will come up later.
Definitely a favorite to go to Pittsburgh. But I have 2 trades. I think the Giants trade they have the 34th pick in the second round. They go ahead, they trade with the Vikings, 24. They take Jackson Dart. And then I think that the team that won the Super Bowl this year, the Philadelphia Eagles, won't be picking tonight. I think Cleveland, who sits at 33, I think they do a switch with Philadelphia. They get into the first round, and they take Tyler Shaw.
Not a Georgia guy?
Cleveland does?
Cleveland does, yes.
Oh, all right.
And go ahead.
Chad Forbes going to join us within the hour with his thoughts on the draft. The other part of the coverage tonight, whether you watch the NFL Network or ESPN and the array of analysts that will be on there, because today is the day that we end the mocks. No more mocking. We are done mocking.
I know.
Mockings are in the book.
Well,
but the best thing about the coverage tonight that I can't wait to see is 2 things. Not only I should say 3. Where people are going to go, but also tragedy porn.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big fan of that too.
We have cut back on tragedy porn
it's a category
during
I don't remember
COVID.
Going to.
During COVID,
it was so bad.
Which we had the moments of people were in their own homes, and then we had the Belichick's dog, and then an empty kitchen table without Belichick.
Don't forget Andy Reid's awesomeness.
Yes,
and the Vikings laughing at the Eagles for drafting Jalen
and
Reagor.
then you had Vrabel's kid who was on the toilet in the background.
Relatable.
But then the NBA was much worse that year about tragedy porn. The NFL with their analysts on ESPN NFL Network, they've kind of slowed their roll, but you know what's going to happen because there will be a prospect this weekend that whether he's a day 2 or day 3 guy, even a day 1 guy, he'll be at his house. There'll be a reporter there, and he will get selected, and the whole joy of being selected to play in the National Football League. And that reporter will go, how are you feeling that as you sit here on your
Greatest day of
your
professional life.
Davenport, you look out to the street, and as this moment has fulfilled your football journey, you look out to the street, but all you can think about as you've made this football journey is that when you were 8 years old, your dog got run over by a car, and you were standing in front of the bay window looking out
You watched
as Rufus got plowed by a Honda Accord. How do you think that
Driven by
moment
a
when you were
grandparent who's
so
dead.
young, and the memory and the loss, how do you think that shaped your football career to get to the point where you just got selected in the 6th round by the Baltimore Ravens? That's what we're going to have, and I'm here for it.
You just took me
because
back to 2020.
The questions are off the wall. Now, the other thing I'm here for,
Okay.
think about what's your favorite NFL draft moment that is not, oh man, Trubisky I knew was going to be a winner, but your favorite NFL draft moment?
Jim Irsay and Mel Kiper.
Okay.
My favorite, Daniel Jones being selected by the Giants. By far.
That I will share a video later today.
I missed Jets and
when
Giants
Richie,
picks at the when it
That
was
was
in New
great.
York.
Like even the panel was like, what the hell was that?
We were all filming Richie when that happened. Now,
That is great.
Now, what we may or may not have, and if we do, it just makes this draft. Will we have a Tunsil moment? Will we have a guy on a bond with a Confederate
God.
flag behind him?
Oh my God, that'd be great.
Which is one of the greatest moments of the NFL draft. Then don't forget your wide receiver, Jimmy. Remember C.D.
Right.
Lamb? Remember C.D. Lamb had 2 phones, and
Yes,
his girlfriend was
yes.
next to him, and
That
she
was great.
grabbed one of the phones, and he was like, you ain't looking at my side piece, and pulled it back, and it was on live TV.
Hell yeah.
So good. How about Will Levis's girlfriend, who literally
Yes.
turned into a megastar after that draft?
Well, how about the Aiden Hutchinson family? His girlfriend and his
Yes.
mom.
Well, didn't Levis's parents as well, or
Yes.
Levis's sisters as
Yeah.
well, do really well after that?
Remember the awkwardness of Mac Jones from the green room when he got selected in his walk?
Yes.
He was like speed walking at crossroads.
How about? Do you remember when? Who was that? The linebacker from Alabama who got drafted by San Francisco, and it didn't really work out. But like he was a troubled player. He was super talented, but a troubled player. I forget his name. It was 31. But the story is that the Saints had the 30th pick, and they called him, and he picked up, and it's like, hey, it's the New Orleans Saints, whatever. And while he's talking to the Saints, San Francisco, who had the 29th pick, was calling him. So he hangs up on New Orleans, and he picks up the phone to San Francisco, and they go, hey, we're drafting you. And he's like, great, whatever. And he ends up being a Niner. And the Saints are like, he hung up on us. And then all of a sudden he got drafted. That's a great moment, too.
How awful would you have to be if you pranked a buddy of yours that was waiting for the call?
That happened to Baker. That happened to Baker.
him?
That happened to Baker Mayfield.
You're
Where
an
he-
awful person.
He got a call. Now, that's another great draft moment, too, where it didn't happen during the draft, but in the pregame, in like the 2 hours before it was
Yeah.
drafted, it was a shock that Mayfield was going to get drafted. It was like, oh my God, Baker, they're going to take Baker number 1. And the entire panel flipped out. They were like, this is a terrible pick. He's a terrible dude. He's gotten arrested. He's a drinker. He's got a bad attitude. This is why the Browns
Fits
are the
right in
Cleveland
the
Browns.
NFL.
Oh, that was a great moment as well.
I'm looking at the Tunsil video.
So, do you know the Pat McAfee story?
Wow.
Do you know the Pat McAfee story with that?
Which one? It seems like there's a new one every day.
So, apparently, McAfee calls Chris Ballard and is like, hey, just so you know, I've done that gas mask before. It is really, really tough. Like, he goes, the fact that guy was able to survive that and hold on for that long, Laramie Tunsil's lung strength, his lung capacity is massive. You should draft him.
There's some validity to that. I could see that.
And Ballard was like, nah, character problems, we can't draft him. Then he ended up being Laramie Tunsil's still in the league.
Yes,
Laramie,
he is.
Laramie
He's
Tunsil's
had a nice little career.
still a pretty damn decent offensive tackle who
there's
gets
also-
traded everywhere.
There's also, because he's in the news today because he's unfollowed the Steelers on all of his social media, Remember George Pickens? There's the shot of him watching the draft at his house,
Okay.
and he is awkwardly standing in front of the TV just staring at it.
Okay.
I'm like, what the heck? By the way, a team that kind of doesn't do well with drama. Like if you're an Antonio Brown, a Le'Veon Bell, a George Pickens, if you create drama in Pittsburgh, they find the exit door for you.
Claypool.
And now we're talking about Aaron Rodgers possibly joining them. For an organization that takes a lot of pride in what they do, don't the Steelers hate drama? They have in the back end of Tomlin's career, they have waded into the drama waters
a little, and then didn't they have the Pouncey twins for a while too on their team? Like
but they were, I think, unlike Florida, they were much better in the NFL
until Mason Rudolph got hit over the head with a helmet with Myles Garrett, and then the Florida Pouncey twins showed up.
When that happens, all bets are off. All right, Chad Forbes going to join us coming up in about 10 minutes. Talk about the NFL draft. Steve Sipple stops by at 9:15. Should you say or should you go? A judge said, not so fast, my friends. And now you're in a quandary. If you are on the Nebraska roster or any other roster and you've not gone into the portal and you're thinking, should I stay or should I go? We will get into that. Sip joins us at 9:15. Of course, the Husker games are Saturday. Pat Stewart, the new GM, speaks to the media today, and Brian Edwards stops by as well in the last hour on a draft day edition, Thursday edition of Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Chad Forbes on the NFL draft. He's coming up next. All right, 45 years ago this week, ESPN covered the first NFL draft. George Grand, he anchored the coverage. They were in the Grand Ballroom of the Sheraton Hotel in New York City. Bob Lee was hosting a panel discussion. Howard Balzer. Now we are outside of Lambeau Field. Wow. Welcome to the NFL Draft. It is Christmas for our next guest. He is from NFL Draft Bites. Chad Forbes joins us. Merry Christmas. Happy Draft Day, Chad. Thanks for rejoining us. Yes.
Last time we talked, it was Thomas Fedoni and Ty Robinson. And I said they're going to go day 3. I'm here to report they're going to go a lot earlier than we expected. And both might go in round 2, Ty Robinson.
Whoa.
Wow.
Chad. Right. Hey, hold that. We'll circle back to that. But as the draft begins today and all the coverage over the next 3 days, what is your favorite cliches that will be used by talking heads talking about prospects or the draft on certain teams?
It's a quarterback-driven league, like we don't already know that. You're going to hear that. Right?
That's a good one.
I used to love when Mike Mayock would say fast guys run fast. Or the combine doesn't matter, and then the 4.29 corner goes like 30 picks earlier than you expected. Those are my favorite.
Hey, but when you deliver that fast guys run fast, if you deliver it the right way, people are like, oh, yeah.
They're like football guys.
Yeah, Mayock is right. He should be a GM in the NFL.
That worked for him.
Chad, what do you think about premium positions? How do you feel about that cliche? That's my favorite one.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? And then you see teams draft like, a Jason Smith from Baylor 2nd overall, right? So it makes sense until the guy loses his job, right? That's the conversation with Ashton Genty. It's not a premium position, but just turn him on. He's a really good player.
All right, let's start with quarterbacks. The first one will be off the board with the first pick. And then things get kind of interesting with the love of Jackson Dart. But this draft will have a lot of discussion about Shedeur Sanders. At 6:39 Central, it's a 7 o'clock draft tonight. What's your gut? What's your sources? What do you think happens with Shedeur Sanders in this draft?
Right. Do the Browns panic and try to trade ahead of the Steelers at 20? To me, the idea that you're going to take Travis Hunter 2nd overall, why not pair him with Shedeur Sanders? I see the Browns trading up either to 18 with the Seahawks or 20 with the Broncos to get ahead of the Steelers. Shedeur is going to go night 1. Obviously, the discussion is going to be how far will he fall. And then Jackson Dart, I don't see it, but apparently the Saints do. So he probably goes somewhere 27 to 29 with a trade up from the Saints. And that's going to be the discussion all day for you guys out there in Green Bay.
Hey, so Chad, where do you I feel like every time when we enter a draft, there's a team sitting in a certain position with a certain need where if they just sit there, they're going to end up winning night 1 just because the draft gods have just tipped the dominoes in a way where it'll fall in their favor. Is there a team right now that you're looking at in the first round where you're like, man, they're just sitting in the perfect position to get their guy?
The Eagles, if they just stick and pick at 32, the entire media world will be like, that Howie Rossman, he's a genius again, right? It doesn't matter who he takes. Someone's going to fall into his lap. A Malachi Starks or a James Pierce. It happens every year. The Jaguars are really fascinating at 5. There's really a lot of directions they could go. But Ashton Genty would be really interesting. I don't think they can go wrong there. They're going to get one of the premium players in the draft courtesy of the Patriots reaching on the left tackle, Will Campbell. And the third team that I look at and say, oh, we're going to walk away from night 1 and say they did a great job is the Buccaneers. The draft really sets up well for them with their needs, given that they need a pass rusher and an inside linebacker.
Did you say that the Patriots will reach for Will Campbell? So I'm guessing he is not your number 1 offensive tackle.
Yeah, it's in between him and Membo, and it really depends on what you need, right? And also scheme and how ready do you need the guy. The floor, I think, is pretty high year 1 on Will Campbell. He's going to be a good player. The problem is at 4, if you're taking an offensive tackle, you want to say, oh, that guy's going to be the next Trent Williams or something, where with Will Campbell, you look at his ceiling and you say, oh, that's like a Taylor Decker or a Riley Reese. That's not exactly what you want to do at 4th overall in a draft.
See, I think we're talking a lot about the quarterbacks, right? But I think right now with this kind of development we've had with Jacksonville and their interest in taking a skill position player, the number one question that I have, and I think what should be the top story is, what the hell is going to happen to Mason Graham? Where do you think that Graham, after having him locked in the top 5 for quite a while, where do you think he's going to end up now?
Mason Graham didn't handle the process well, right? It was not even injury related. A lot of guys are like, oh, sorry, I can't work out because I've got this foot issue or whatever. And they try to hide the fact that they're not a great athlete. With Mason Graham, it was just like, I'm, going to go top 5. That's what his agent Drew Rosenhaus said. And then teams were like, okay, that's great, but like, let's see a workout and kind of quantify your athletic ability. He's going to go somewhere between 8 and 13. I could see apparently the 49ers prefer Walter Nolan to Mason Graham, which is kind of surprising. If the Raiders or somebody trades down, you could see that being a target. He'd also fit the Bears, but really that's just, I think Jacksonville, what they're doing kind of there is they recognize that the teams that want to trade up are looking to get Ashton Genty, and they're hoping that the Bears give them kind of a Godfather offer.
Hey, you are somebody who not only does the first round mock and discusses the first round, but you go out all 7. Who are some teams, as you look at their current roster, now what they're going to add out of the draft, who has to have a good 3 days in Green Bay?
Well, if you don't have a good 3 days in Green Bay, you're probably going to get fired. But I look at the Seahawks, where they've accumulated all this extra capital. Sure, it stinks to lose a DK Metcalf, and he obviously got paid by the Steelers, but they've got tons of picks there. And the needs really align with them. Hopefully they can get an offensive line addressed early with the North Dakota State kid and then just start to hit needs as they go there. So all those picks, it's hard to come away from a draft, not saying you won, but, part of that is they had to part with DK Metcalf. And the second team where I say, if they don't get this right, their window's going to start to close is the Buffalo Bills. They really need help on defense with defensive tackle, edge rusher, and corner.
4 years from now, what do you think we'll be saying about this running back class?
I don't think it's going to pan out as a lot of people expected. I think there's kind of a 6 guys at top, but I'm not a huge Caleb Johnson guy. Okay. But it's not like this group that's like transcendent. There's a lot of pass catchers and situational backs in the group.
So one of those, and we haven't had a running back taken first overall since Kajana Carter, but we had a nice year of running backs led by Barkley, and they got more love. Yeah. Genty's gotten a ton of love. He's going to be off the board pretty quick. But the other running back that has really, the attention has picked up as the draft process has begun. What's your thoughts on Hampton from North Carolina and where he might end up?
Big physical back. I still think he's going in the second round. And I think what you're saying about the running backs is really interesting because everybody's looking for the day 3 back. The way the Buccaneers or the Giants got Tyron Tracy or Bucky Irving with the Bucs. So, the third day, whether it's Bashawn Tootin or the SMU running back, those guys are certainly intriguing.
All right, let's talk about the Huskers. Last time you were on here, you did an incredible job talking about Fedoni. You predicted him, I'm pretty sure, going in the 5th round of Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think you had Ty Robinson more on the 3rd round side. Now that it's been about 2 months, where do we sit right now with the Huskers?
I think he's going to go in the 3rd round. And I look at that Philadelphia Eagles pick at 96. And what they're doing with Dallas Goedert, shopping him, they don't want to pay him. They can only pay so many guys in Philadelphia. I look at him as the 5th best tight end in the draft, and he's got really impressive measurables, a ton of length, and he's a really intriguing player. I think he wasn't utilized well in that offense at Nebraska.
And then Robinson, where do you see the D lineman going?
Teams love him. I said last time I was on with you guys, he's a little overage, meaning he's not like a 21 or 22-year-old prospect. He just killed the process in terms of really getting with teams and them getting to know him. And I think he's going to go in the 3rd round, and the latest he'll go is probably like 110th.
I like the 3rd round, and I like the Kansas City Chiefs selecting him in the 3rd round.
I also like the 49ers for him.
Well, man, we can fight over that. Just kidding. What do you think? So Kansas City drafts at 31. They need to protect Patrick Mahomes. They also need to find a complement to a 31-year-old Chris Jones. We know what Brett Veach does on this scenario of the draft when Kansas City needs something, where they go shopping. What do you think Kansas City does at 31? And what do you think are some of the other needs that Kansas City has to fill in?
So I'm not privy to medicals, okay? But Derek Harmon is apparently following the defensive tackle from Oregon due to some medicals. On my board, if you disregard the medicals, he's the 4th best player. He's better than Mason Graham. I think this guy's got all pro talent. If you're sitting there at 31st overall and he's available, sprint to the podium. Offensive tackle, they kind of hit that in free agency. There's some value there in the 2nd round. I really think it needs to be an impact defender. I thought part of the Super Bowl story was their defensive line was really average, and they missed on the defensive end a couple years ago. You're right. They need a running mate for Chris Jones. And if Derek Harmon's there, that's really intriguing to me.
All righty. I'm a big Bears fan, Chad. And if we're looking at their draft picks right now in the first 2 days, 10, then 39, then 41, I'll let you be Ryan Poles. Give me your ideal outcome for Chicago if they're going to walk away the winners of this draft.
The ideal outcome is somehow you trade up for Ashton Genty and held on to both those 2nd-round picks. But if you can't, I say you still go up for Ashton Jeanty. Everybody's talking about positional value and trade charts. Look, it's about winning games, and they rebuilt that offensive line. Go get Jeanty. It'll excite the fan base. Take pressure off Caleb Williams. Omar Norman, lots of guys that I look at for round 2, and then the pass rushers, Landon Jackson from Arkansas, JT Tuilamosu, and then they can hit safety. But, I look at what they did for agency and say the needs aren't as egregious as they were in the past. Let's go get Jeanty and get that done.
Hey, everybody's fast forwarding to what happens at 5. But what's your thoughts on what Cam Ward looks like in Tennessee?
I think it's a great fit. And throughout the process, he was underrated. Everybody's saying, this isn't a great quarterback class. I don't think people really watch enough ACC football. He had a tremendous year. Sure, there's some questions with ball security. But this idea that, he's not a better prospect than a Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy, to me, was crazy. If you just watch those Miami games, I think it was a no-brainer for the Titans. I mean, I love Abdul Carter. I'm not as high on Travis Hunter as everybody else is. That's another story. But, yeah, if you're sitting first overall, you can't pass on the quarterback. It makes all sense in the world.
Hey, so Trevor Penning, the offensive tackle out of New Orleans yesterday, he didn't get his 5th-year option picked up. So immediately a lot of talking heads thought that, hey, this means that the Saints are going to go tackle now at 9. Do you think that them not picking up Penning means that they're going to switch what we think they're going to do? Because for a while we thought it'd be D-line or edge.
Well, Trevor Penning is a bust, right? So you're not going to pick up that 5th-year option, whether you have need or not. I mean, that was kind of just like a crazy concept that somehow that indicates how they're going to draft.
Sure.
What I will do is I'll connect a couple dots for you, though.
Okay.
All right? Armand Membu and the Saints, okay? Membu was coached by Kirby Moore, the new coach, Kellen Moore's brother at Missouri. He fits that system perfectly. If he's there at 9, I think that's a great fit for the Saints. And then another fun fact, Trevor Penning's brother, Jared, is also a part of this draft class. Will probably be an undrafted free agent to the Vikings.
Okay.
Hey, we'll ask for our producer, Jimmy, is a diehard Cowboy fan. They have needs. They've been attached to some wide receivers. One of the wide receivers that has kind of bounced all over on how people think about him, whether you love him or you, Todd McShay, hate him. What's your thoughts on McMillan? And then also, what do you think Dallas does with their pick at 12?
McShay and I are on the same page. I don't love that prototype of wide receiver, this guy, contested catch guy.
Yeah.
Right? It only works so often. I'm a big Matthew Golden guy. I also like Luther Burden. At 12, I think that they should be looking to trade down to somebody that wants Kelvin Banks, right? We look at the tackle from Texas. The floor seems to be the Dolphins at 13. If a team has tackle need, whether it's like the Houston Texans that want to come up for Kelvin Banks, that would make a lot of sense. I would not take Ted McMillan there. And not enough discussion has been given to the idea that they could use an edge rusher. They went out in free agency and they signed that former Saints edge rusher. They don't have a defensive tackle on that roster that I like. So, I think, maybe jump and trade down. But, the Cowboys are always fascinating come draft night. I think day 2 is really where they get interesting. If they go Trayvon Henderson or Alfred Collins, what's their direction?
Chad, as always, we appreciate it. Enjoy the night. Great stuff at NFL Draft Bites, where you can find
Are
Chad.
You guys out in Green Bay?
No. We'll go to the NFL Draft site when Nebraska has a first-round guy. But it's been now 14 years.
All right, guys.
Hey, thank you. That's Chad Forbes. Got a lot of energy for before 7 o'clock talking about the draft.
He is. So
he was ready to get together.
We had him up. we had him on the show here, and I think you were announcing an Omaha game. I'm going to be honest with you. He does have a lot of energy. He was a little bit more laid back in that interview. He is fired up. I mean, you talked about it being Christmas for him. It is clearly
that was his
Christmas
first words to me when I called. He said, "Merry Christmas."
I mean, he is
Happy
incredibly excited. Hey, he brought up a name that I really, really like, that I am deeming my sleeper. This guy is going to be a guy that you're going to know, you're going to hear a lot about when he ends up playing great in the NFL. Bashal Tutin out of Virginia Tech, the running back, had 1,200 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, had 15 touchdowns running, 17 touchdowns total, 21 catches out of the backfield. He is smaller, he is shifty, he's agile, but he's like a bowling ball. Okay, Bashal Tutin. Remember the name.
Call the people in Dallas and tell them that.
Bashal Tutin.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I keep telling you, you're going to be fine at 12.
He got me a little excited with Burden. I like Luther Burden.
Well, there's a pretty good betting odd on Burden not going in the first round that you can get some good money on.
Don't get my hopes up. This is how it starts.
But if you don't go wide receiver with Golden or McMillan, I think Booker. I know you like Booker.
I like Booker a lot.
I think that'd be a good pickup for the Cowboys. I think you're going to be fine at 12. Now, I do. So I not only did my mock first round, yes, after mocking the mockers, I was a mocker.
You are a mocker.
I will do one mock. I will do one and only mock. And
It's
I
the
did
difference
my
between
one
1
and
and
only mock
18.
is the Chiefs have the 66th overall pick in the third round. I love me some Ty Robinson to the Kansas
I
City
hope that would happen.
Chiefs
That'd be cool.
in the third round.
That would be, well, first off, a really good value pick. Like, it'd be
He's
in
used to
Mills'
wearing
need.
red.
He plays. I mean, he would fit into Spags'
Mhm.
defense. He would take over. I mean, how lucky would it be for Nebraska to have two guys who get drafted and they both end up studying under Hall of Fame players? Cam Jurgens studies under Jason Kelsey. Ty Robinson gets drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, studies under Chris Jones. That would be one hell of a roll of the dice for those two guys.
Now, in the McSports book, I'm going to give you a prop.
Okay.
So, Chad Forbes, super high on Fedoni.
Yes. Very high on Fedoni.
There have only been, now, if you're driving here in the rain in Omaha, grab onto the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm. Close the
Because
sunroof.
Nebraska has only had 3 skill guys on offense drafted since 2018.
Okay.
They all were not produced from Nebraska. They were all stopped by for a cup of coffee and then were off to the NFL. Nebraska has not had a recruit of their own that got drafted from a skill position in the NFL since Andy Janovich in 2016. Tanner Lee, Samari Toure, and Trey Palmer. 2 of those 3 were 6th-round picks. Toure was a 7th-round pick. Could Fedoni be the highest drafted skill position player on offense from Nebraska since 2016? And he would also be locally as somebody that recruited and stayed his entire time. Would be incredible. Will he be the highest skill position player on offense drafted from Nebraska since Janovich in 16? That's a terrible stat, by the way.
Awful.
Great for Fedoni that he could hold that. That's a horrible stat for Nebraska.
Do you know what's an even worse stat?
That's...
Do you know what's an even worse stat? Is that Nebraska, there have been 2 guys who were on Nebraska's roster that I can think of that went higher than that in the 2nd and 3rd round that were claimed by other teams. Luke McCaffrey out of Rice and Wendell Robinson out of Kentucky. So you had 2 guys who ended up being high skill position draft picks. They just had to find that potential elsewhere too.
Well, you will have the first 2 guys off the board will be 2 guys that were recruited in Nebraska, stayed at Nebraska, and will only have film from Nebraska.
I need to know, we need to get Elias Sports Bureau or someone, what percentage of draft picks all through the first 7 rounds have that recruited by a team, only have one taped by a team, will be drafted in the NFL. It's got to be
Carter and Campbell, Mason Graham, Genty.
Yeah,
there might be a little bit more
than I think.
It's probably more like 2nd round on that you'll find guys that have multiple stops.
Oh, sure,
for sure.
But
it's, I mean, Cam Ward has had multiple stops, and he's going to be the first overall pick. It doesn't hurt you, but it's the new.
Well,
get used to. Guys.
The first 4 quarterbacks taken in this draft, all of them will have played for multiple teams.
Yep. All right. Coming up a little bit later, Steve Sipple stops by. Also, Brian Edwards on the day of the draft. Hit up your favorite Culver's. Grab some cheese curds to watch the draft tonight. We'll have coverage right here on 1620 The Zone. Back with hour 2 of Gary and Matt after this. Hey, Mick Sportsbook. Something you said off air happened yesterday. So there's some places over across the river that a lot of us go.
Yes.
That, all of a sudden the geofencing, kicks in and you're like, oh, you're in Iowa. You can make a bet.
Yep.
You're Mick Sportsbook.
Yes.
There's people that drive on I-80 that will pull over. But there's a lot of locations. There is a particular grocery store, which sometimes on Saturday, we all give each other the head nod because if you know.
Everybody's looking down at the phones, walking through the aisles.
You're going to have to continue to do that for another year because mobile gaming in the state of Nebraska is on hiatus until at least 2026.
Shocker.
Did that guy just walk around the store with his head down in his phone for 15 minutes and grab one bottle of soap? What was he doing?
Checking the list.
Hey, do you know that I guess we're past the statute of limitations here?
Sure.
We had I don't know, I would say a reach around. I would say...
What?
We didn't always have the internet and cable.
We had a moment of time where there were places in Omaha, downtown Omaha, where it still thought you were in Iowa.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think that's called a reach around, right?
No.
That's the wrong definition?
That's just an error. What that is. That's just
I think we
bad
had
satellites.
We had a go around.
A go around.
Yeah. Somebody discovered it sitting in the parking lot of the College World Series.
Yeah.
They were in Lot D and they were like, did you know that my FanDuel app popped up and it recognizes that, thinks that I'm in Iowa?
Oh, no.
Although, to be fair, that one LSU fan outside Zesto's a couple years ago, I can see why you would have said that.
Oh. So,
by the way, the difference between a reach around and a go around is...
Can you explain?
Or we'll be on the podcast later.
No. Oh,
there's an idea? Content.
No, the podcast.
I should have said, it's still work, but I should have said workaround.
Workaround.
Yes.
The Take 5 podcast today is going to be Mick Sportsbook.
Not on reach
Heavily Mick Sportsbook. I'm pissed, though, at one of the sports books that I use because I can't parlay certain things. Like, I want to parlay certain guys going in certain positions because I'm incredibly confident in some of my research that I've done, and I can't do that. Which is like, why? Why can't I parlay the fact that Ashton Genty and Will Campbell are both going to go in the first 10 picks? Like, that's easy money.
That is stealing.
It is stealing.
Yes.
But do you know that like their odds are like, or no, sorry. It's minus 480 that Campbell's going to go in the fourth pick, and it's minus 230 that Genty is going to go with the fifth pick. If I could parlay those, that is stealing. It's free money.
My Vegas insider, Brandon, who is really, really inside Vegas, he said the word I'm looking for is loophole.
Oh, yeah. Big time. I
don't know why I had that on my mind, but I thought I was...
Full Metal Jacket. A great movie. Yeah.
Exactly.
Never seen
also, as we welcome in hour number 2, Gary and Matt with Jimmy.
Be a good day for you to watch it before the draft.
National Pigs in a Blanket Day.
Ooh.
So celebrate kind. This National Day is brought to you by the talented voice of Nebraska women's basketball, studio anchor for Husker football, and host of Big Red Reaction, Matt Coatney. So enjoy your National Pigs in a Blanket. The only place I've ever had pigs in a blanket, IHOP. I saw a commercial when I was younger, and I was like, I want to try that.
And that's why advertising works, kids.
Never when Barb Sharp was making it, never crossed my mind that would be good. But we went to IHOP, and I was like, this is awesome.
So I love Red Robin. I love Perkins.
Yep.
Perkins, the
appetizer sampler, 2:30 in the morning.
By the way, you can go to the closest Perkins to here and be able to be on the Mick Sportsbook.
And that's how you tie it back together.
Absolutely.
Nebraska ran out Perkins. A lot of things Nebraska runs out. They ran out
gambling.
Perkins.
There's a Perkins in Eau Claire, Wisconsin that was perfectly halfway in between Skokie, Illinois and Brainerd, Minnesota, in which we would take our annual trip. So that was like their tradition. We would go up, we would drive up, and Mom would be tired of driving. And so we would do the switch between Mom and Dad at a Perkins. And I would always get the eggs, hash brown, green pepper, onion skillet. And it was quite incredible. It was so good.
There's some good breakfast spots here in town, but nothing hits you like a day where you go, you know what? I'd like to have some Perkins.
I don't know
and
if
not
you're
just
joking,
Sam,
but I couldn't agree more.
I miss the VI Perkins wars. Village Inn might have run out Perkins.
Ooh, I had two friends getting a massive argument in college over Village Inn and Perkins, and it was nasty.
I've never been to a Village Inn. I just recently, though, went to a Waffle House And
Okay.
I've never been to one of those. I'm a
that
big
was quite
failure.
the experience.
Much greater than both. But if you've noticed, the prices have gone up at the Waffle House.
Everywhere. The prices have gone up everywhere.
No, not everywhere.
Do you know my Chipotle
No.
bowl yesterday cost $15?
Oh,
Did you get double the guac?
I just got a single scoop of guac.
Oh, that's about $9-10 right there.
It used to be $11 with a chicken bowl with a scoop of guac. Now we're up to 15.
Oh.
And then the lady said,
Wait till we do
I
Wendy's
was paying in
next.
cash.
Maybe build a garden, grow your own food, save some money.
This rain's helping.
Quit complaining.
Mm.
There are people out there that are walking the streets in the rain this morning, and they're not able to go to Chipotle. Instead, they have to go to Qdoba.
Qdoba's pretty good.
Where the guac
But,
is free.
You know, I walked up and I go,
Is it?
It is.
wait,
Really?
what?
The guac is free there?
At Qdoba, yeah.
You're lying.
No, I would not lie about food. At least it used to be. I don't know if it still is. I haven't been to one.
I
in a while.
highly doubt it.
But
But
that
I-
was the difference between Qdoba and Chipotle versus the other stuff that people can argue about. What tastes better? Who's better? I'm just saying one of them did not charge for guac.
Hey,
And they were
what-
proud of that.
What happened to the society in coins? Have we just completely given up?
Cryptocurrency?
No. I'm
The
like
memes?
quarters and
Oh.
like pennies.
I was going to say, because
What
both
happened
those
to
things.
stamps?
Well, stamps are still around. Remember, every time I go to Jewel Osco, you got to get some stamps. But you got to get
Where?
Jewel Osco.
the
That's
grocery
our
store.
like Piggly Wiggly
Okay,
or
yeah,
Publix.
Osco,
whatever.
yeah, WGN. I remember it was the
Thank you.
commercials. That's where I first saw Menards
Very
commercials.
good, Jimmy. But I was
used
about
to watch
say,
the Cubs.
I use cash because I'm
Swept
Randy
the
Moss,
Dodgers last
homie,
night.
and no coins. She goes, "We don't have coins." What the hell? How do you not have coins in a register? How the hell are you Chipotle, and you are that industry, and you don't have any coins in your cash register? What have we done? What has happened to society nowadays?
Did
How
you go with the
hell-
chicken?
Yeah, I went with the chicken.
Okay.
I always go
That
with the
just
chicken.
teaches you not to carry cash.
Mm.
Everything's a card
Mhm.
or off your phone.
I like cash.
There is, as the NFL draft begins tonight in Green Bay, there is a tinge of sadness because yesterday, Steve McMichael passed away at the age of 67. A guy who loved football, loved life, was, of course, most associated with your Chicago Bears.
Mhm.
He's one of the rare guys, I think, in the world that had a Super Bowl championship and a hell of a wrestling career
Yeah.
on WCW.
Larger than life.
He also has so many moments.
And Angel Hernandez still sucks.
Yes. Here's the thing about Mongo. He has the 7th inning stretch at the Cubs game where he got thrown out by Angel Hernandez because after singing, he said, "I'll have some speaks with that umpire," and Hernandez is staring at him.
Was he
from-
wrong about the call, though?
He
was
was
not.
He was not. And you know what? Mongo was ahead of his time in talking
Yeah.
about Angel Hernandez, but he had an incredible personality. And there's the thing. I liked him. I kind of liked the Bears back in the 80s because Todd Blackledge screwed me over in 83 and 84 and 85. So I had to almost find a new team.
Yeah.
And reading all the stories. And, he was also a radio station that you were at. He was great to that radio
Yes.
station. I mean, he had a really good radio career as well. I mean, he lived football, he lived life. But the thing that is pretty cool, and, you being from Chicago,
Yep.
but kind of past the time that he was in the
Oh,
spotlight.
for sure.
Everybody in Chicago seems to have a Mongo story. That's pretty cool. Like you've lived a full life. If when you leave this earth, people have a story about meeting you or working with you
Yeah.
or something like that.
You say
And it
Mongo,
seems
you
like-
think Chicago?
Seems like everybody I'm seeing on my X timeline has a story about meeting Steve McMichael, doing
Yeah.
something with Steve McMichael. Hell of a life.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head, and honestly kind of took the words out of my mouth because I did work at ESPN 1000, in which he had an incredible partnership with them over there, and a lot of those guys that worked with Mongo when he was an integral part of what they were doing during the pre games and the post games and covering the Bears. All of those
I thought he was
guys
great.
had Mongo stories, every single one of them. And especially during the time I was working there when he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so there was a lot of talk about him and his legacy. And I'll tell you this right now, every Mongo story that was told, there was a laugh after.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody always had a chuckle or always had a bit of an eye roll or something like that because he's larger than life, right? And he's just
Right.
one of those
That's just
guys
Mongo.
where everybody, like he affected everybody he was around, just he always brought light to situations, always had really great things to say, was always anytime there was one host who talked about it, like anytime he would walk into a booth or walk into a room, like there was immediately like brightness to it or laugh to it. And he was one of one. And, it's just ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, just an absolutely terrible disease. And thinking about that disease, right, you still are sharp in the mind, when it's going on, when your body is deteriorating. And I just can't imagine the struggle that he and his family went through to see a hulking figure like that, them go through that. But
and he got his bust.
Yeah.
So he
got to see Angel leave baseball.
And
he is what a Chicago Bear is supposed to be.
Yes.
And I always think about those teams in the 80s. Like I
no
think
sleeves.
I think the 84 defense was better than the 85 defense.
The 86 defense was actually better than the 85 defense,
and
too.
they should have. You think about it, if they didn't have such poor quarterback play,
they didn't start Doug Flutie against Washington.
They could have had multiple Super Bowls
easily.
But I mean, that's been a problem with the Bears forever. It's about 40 years of shoddy quarterback play. But back to the thing with ALS, and I give a lot of credit to Walter Payton's son, Jarrett. So Jarrett has really carried the cause of Walter Payton in his dad's after his dad's death.
Yeah,
and especially with ALS. And I don't know the in-depth relationship between him and Steve McMichael, but Jared Payton has done an incredible job of telling the story of Steve McMichael and about ALS. So, minor league baseball, one of the great things, many things that minor league baseball does is if you do it right, you get affiliated with the Lou Gehrig, the ALS.
Yeah.
Okay, but Lou Gehrig's disease with the tie into baseball. And in Fort Myers, we did that. And I met so many special people, and I understood more about the caretakers and how much you go through, and how a night out at the ballpark where you can just enjoy yourself without your husband or your wife or your son or your daughter, just a time away, what that means, but then also the time together and how special that is. And to watch Steve McMichael's family interact with him as he is fighting ALS. And I say thank you to Steve McMichael and a good friend of mine, John Driscoll Hopkins, who is he's one of the original members of the Zac Brown Band. JDH was diagnosed with ALS 2 years ago. He elected to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
And, and talked to John at the Hop probably about 4 or 5 months ago. And he's noticed that his right hand is slowing down a little bit. And think about it. He's a guitar player for the Zac Brown Band. But it's such an awful, cruel, rotten disease. But the more people share and the more they talk about it, and maybe some point we can get, as the research goes on and people cope with this, and it's not a death sentence, that we can do something to fight ALS and maybe at one point get to the finish line. But man, it's what he went through. But the fact that they shared it and he fought and he fought and he fought is an incredible, just another addition to what football and life was for Steve McMichael. And I'm glad guys like Jarrett Payton told the story, because there's more stories out there that people are afraid to tell. But I think if you tell them more about your battle with ALS, okay, that people go, oh, this is real. Okay, this is cruel. It's rotten. It's horrible for everybody involved. How do we find a way to cure this disease? Is it money? Is it research? What do we do? And maybe in death, Steve McMichael, there's somebody else that shares their story and we get closer and closer. But you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Once you heard he was going to hospice, and they take him. He went to hospice at noon.
At 5:28 was.
And
I just picture when he got his wings, he got his helmet, he was back to being Mongo.
And I'll tell you this right now, I'm
long hair in the wind.
I am excited to listen to Chicago sports radio today and just hear about how they'll honor him and talk about him. But those guys, they have a great relationship with him, and he was a towering figure. And it was great, that station in particularly has talked a lot about ALS and the awareness of it because of Mongo. And John Shambi, the voice of the Chicago Cubs, came on the air one time and he said something, and it has always stuck with me. Lou Gehrig, if he got the disease today that he got all those years ago, his fate would have been the exact same. It would have the same exact thing.
Almost 100 years later
would have happened to him, because it's one of those diseases where it's super, super rare. And, the more money we can give to it and the more research we can help it, and just, it's one of those things where you keep mining the dirt, right? You keep hitting the pickaxe, you keep digging and digging and digging, and you don't know when you're going to reach your goal. But hopefully one day we keep digging and we find a way to alleviate the effects of it.
Well, one of the best ambassadors for ALS is Steve Gleason. And you brought up something about ALS. If you're not familiar with it, you still have your mind. Yeah. And Steve Gleason may not be able to play football ever again, confined to a wheelchair. But he has the power of his mind. And Steve Gleason he was diagnosed in 2011 when he was 34 years old, and we're now in 2025. So, but that'll be. I'm sure there'll be something at the draft tonight, because everybody has a Steve McMichael story. Everybody. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. More on the draft. Nebraska football practices for the next to last time of the spring. Pat Stewart, the GM, speaks today. If he was drafting off the current Nebraska roster, who would he take with the number 1 overall pick? Plus, we will talk about the decision that will or won't happen, as we found Claudia is everybody's friend. Judge Wilkin, who yesterday said, "Not so fast, my friends." So if you are 106, 107, 120 on Nebraska's roster, what do you do? We'll get into that. We roll till 10. A little bit later, Steve Sipple, Brian Edwards on 1620 The Zone. Hey, all of the storms that have rolled through the area, unfortunately this morning it has just rained, but you got a bad roof, and you got holes in your roof, you got water in the house. What's the way to fix that? My good friends at Moose Roofing, the MVPs of roofing in Omaha, Pat Moose and their entire MVP crew, they will take care of you. They are an Omaha-based roofing company. They don't have their business on wheels. They actually have a bricks and mortar store. They've been here for nearly 30 years. They're before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. When you need them to fix your roof, your siding, your gutters, they are focused on the technology. They are focused on how they can service you. They start with their consultants who sit down. They get to know you as a person, and then your needs, and then they go to work. They assess the damage. They get on the roof. They touch, they feel, they talk, and then they go to work. And they also go to work because one thing that a lot of people are finding out about replacing your roof, whether it be you're looking to sell your home or after a storm, is that insurance process. They have a whole department of Moose Roofing that is dedicated to walk you through that process. Heck, Pat's even picked up the phone and talked to your insurance agent to make sure that you are getting the right deal. That's what they do. They go above and beyond. So, roofing, siding, gutters. They need fixed or they need an inspection. The only place to go is Moose Roofing. For more information, log on and check them out online at mooseroofing.com. I'd imagine if you have a top 10 of your sports event rankings, today is in your top 10 NFL draft. Yay, nay?
Mine personally, yes. I think overall, like universally, I think this would probably be in like the 8, 9, 10 mark, more than likely. But I think it is if we're talking a yearly event, like
it's consistent,
yearly,
always. Yeah, you can count on it.
Yeah, if we're eliminating like the Olympics and like the World Cup and like all those ones that happen like every 4 years, every 2 years, I think this is easily in the top 10.
The draft begins tonight. The Tennessee Titans are on the clock. They may take Cam Ward.
Minus 2,000
overall pick. Well, Buckeye Ross, who, if Jeremiah Smith could go in the NFL draft, Jeremiah Smith would be drafted by the Tennessee Titans tonight. Yes. You don't even think about that.
Rudy? No. I don't know.
He's quite good.
The Titans have such a need at quarterback.
They got Will Levis. They could go another year. They could draft Jeremiah Smith. They could tank, get Arch Manning or Nussmeier or Sellers or Beck.
I think
Aller.
Cam Ward still is one really, really good prospect. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith is a better prospect than Cam Ward. But I don't know. I don't want to sell Cam Ward short. Probably Jeremiah Smith probably would go number 1 overall, but the Titans have a need, and I think Cam Ward is going to be pretty good in the NFL.
Ohio State will have a good day. By the way, the Big Ten will have a big day in the NFL draft. Thank you to Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington for joining the league. But this should be a good night for the Big Ten. Should be a good 3 days for the Big Ten.
How many guys from UCLA, USC, and Oregon are going to get drafted in Washington? I don't think there are that many who are going to be added in from there. I think Derek Harmon and then
Connerly,
good call. But Connerly may fall to the second round. I mean, a lot of it is going to be Will Johnson. We'll see how far Will Johnson
Michigan
falls.
will have a haul. Ohio State will have a haul. Penn State will have the third overall pick.
Yeah.
But speaking of Ohio State, Buckeye Ross writes at Gary at 1620 The Zone on the Equitable Bank inbox. He has made his call here.
Oh.
I think he's trying to pull at my heartstrings. Travion Henderson to the Chiefs.
At 31?
So he looked it up. Henderson is now minus 195 on FanDuel to go in the first round. So the Chiefs are at 31, then Philadelphia at 32. There are multiple mockers that have Henderson going like 33, 34, 35. Especially if there's some trades and like a team that would not be in the first pick on the second day.
Yeah.
Like a Denver. Denver could use a running back.
I've seen.
So maybe.
Well, I've seen Travion Henderson mocked a lot to the Bears. Now, the thing about Henderson, and maybe why I think he could sneak into the first round, is I think not a lot of people are talking about, he's a great pass blocker. In pass protection, Travion Henderson by far is your best pass protecting running back, which especially in this pass driven league is so useful. And Kansas City, you need to up your pass protection, right? You need to up your pass pro, need to help your quarterback not running around like a chicken with his head cut off.
Now he's got a different body and a different haircut. So, by the way, will that affect the guy in Lincoln?
I was about to say, is
we're on haircut watch?
Hey, after Mahomes did media yesterday, and after people saw that bod has gone away. He looks good post Super Bowl. That might be one of the better things that's happened is that Chiefs got punked in the Super Bowl.
Look what happened the last time, and then they came with this run.
But he's got a new haircut, and so I imagine that 70% of the males that are between the age of 14 and 22 will have the same haircut.
Don't discount
before the weekend is over.
Yeah, I'm not a fade guy. Never will be a fade guy. I've always thought
especially at the 1 yard line.
I can guarantee I will not be a fade guy.
I don't think I'll ever get a.
If you do throw a good fade though, Raiola. I mean that's a sign of progress.
Randy
if we're throwing
Moss
a better fade,
could just run the ball.
We need to throw better fades.
Why would you run the ball, Jimmy, in the red zone? You remember that one time when they said we're going to run the ball into the end zone? That's the way to do the red zone. Hell no! Let's throw the ball inside of the 20.
And Maryland wins.
Are you talking about the UCLA game where they had 3 plays within the 7 yard line, decided to go pass,
games.
and then
let's just show what we're going to do here. You know what? The field shortens. You know what? Let's go big boy arm. Let's just sip it in there.
Let's the field shortens and let's roll out toward the boundary. And throw a pass.
Hey, there's a guarantee this morning that Dylan Raiola will be part of the 105. But there is no guarantee that it'll be 105.
Interesting if true.
Winner,
Wow.
chicken dinner. Think about this. And after this decision came down, the House versus the NCAA case yesterday, the judge who she wants this thing and she's actually working with some common sense. She actually might have a heart. No, not actually. She has a heart.
She does.
So she has threatened to reject the settlement over roster limits, and she has set a hard deadline to get this fixed. There are a 14-day deadline for both parties to come to an agreement. Now, lawyers, do they really want tens of millions of dollars in fees and costs? And is this a hill to die on? Now, if you're going to die on it, that means you're going to the Super League, and this is the separation. But I don't think they will. So I think we're going to get some grandfathering, or maybe because the average college football roster is 128 players.
Okay.
Could they go with a number of 120? But this whole discussion, which has been going on for a while, we got a little bit of clarification yesterday. The portal for college football closes at midnight tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about this judge who, again, this is what she wants, and she's going to get it, and she's acting with common sense, and now she is a friend to all. So she doesn't like the word cutting. I'm sure that she maybe had a son. She's a little bit older judge.
Maybe she talked to Matt Rule.
She had a son or a daughter that got cut. She doesn't like cutting. She would like to have some phased in. But I was thinking about this, and I think I can relate to her. Have you guys ever met a judge? Have you ever met a judge where you know that person? Not you were in front of them, but you actually know
Your friend, the judge.
You know a judge, like they're your neighbor. They're related to you.
So I am related to one. I am related to a judge head on.
Wapner?
No, his name's Gary.
Judge Gary?
Judge Gary. Oh, I didn't even think of that.
These years you didn't tell me this?
He actually, Judge Gary, who lives in Florida.
Okay.
Funny enough.
Okay.
So we're very
when you think you know someone.
He is the husband to my mother's cousin, who may as well be like a sister. And so whenever we take trips out to Florida, we hang out with those cousins, Madison and Mackenzie, and then Gary the father is an honor. When I talk to him sometimes, I go, Your Honor. So yes, I do know a judge very well. Continue on.
So Claudia Wilkin of the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, she issued this deadline yesterday. I think all of us sports fans that have been ringing over the number 105, we might have found a judge that we can relate to. Like most judges, and I don't want to mess with karma here because if I end up in front of a judge.
We can't even relate to Aaron.
Isn't there mostly, like when it comes to settlements and things like this and, whether you get in trouble or not, we have like a negative connotation to judges.
1,000,000%.
Hey, Claudia, do you call her Judge Claudia? Do you call her Judge Wilkin? Or do you call her just the judge?
Or
not related to Aaron?
Your Honor.
You know what? Aaron Judge is from California, from Northern California.
Great point.
I think I have found the most relatable judge in all my judges. Even Aaron Judge, Mike Judge,
Judge Judy,
Judge Wapner,
yeah. Judge Chamberlain Holler in
Judge
Alabama.
Gary's pretty cool.
The actor, Judge.
Reinhold.
Judge Reinhold. Yeah,
I almost said Jude Law. We were missing one letter there.
But this is
good call on Jude Law though. He's in the law.
This is what she wants, and this is what she's going to get. But think about, let's use Rule for example, because that he has gone through this, and people were wondering, are they going to cancel the 60-play scrimmage on Saturday because of this? If you are a player on this roster, so let's say it's phased in, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they cap it at 120, and Nebraska's at 129, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're still looking for an opportunity to play, and your opportunity to get playing time at Nebraska is blocked, and you're already thinking about going into the portal because you want to go play somewhere, what does this do if you wake up this morning and you're like, all right, I won't be going to compliance.
Sure.
What do? Do you still go into the portal? Or do you say, you know what? I like it here at old GBR. I'm fine. I'm going to continue to pay my way.
Yeah.
Because I think if you are grandfathered in and you are not part of the designated 105, you would have to pay your way to be part of the program.
I think a
It's
lot
a
of
tricky situation still,
I
but
think
it's the right situation. It's the right thing from the judge.
first off, kudos to her. I was actually kind of surprised that this happened because following the hearing, it seemed like she was very in favor of having the settlement happen and very in favor of players getting paid. But it was always a point of contention about her really pressing the NCAA about the roster limit. So she didn't have to. She didn't have to take a stand. She didn't have to say, hey, we're not going to do this unless this happens. And I do think, Matt Rule included, a lot of coaches and a lot of people and pundits who have stood up and said, this is bad, this is not a good thing, walk-ons are a great part of the game, definitely were a part of her understanding that this is an incredibly important decision that she was making. So throw back at her, kudos to her. I think it's a case-by-case basis, but if you are a in-state kid paying in-state tuition who grew up a Husker fan.
Hey, now in-state tuition has gotten expensive.
Well,
It's true.
and I'm not saying it was cheap, but I'm just saying, a little bit more affordable, right, than out-of-state tuition. And
Do they still have I was able to get out-of-state.
I don't know
out-of-state or getting interstate.
Some schools, yeah, they do that. I know
Reciprocity?
Arkansas did that with people in
Hey.
Kansas City because they recruit that area hard for
Hey,
students.
the Dakotas, if you're from Nebraska, you can go to a school in South Dakota or North Dakota and pay in-state tuition.
Oh, wow.
Complimentary coat
That's
Do
provided.
they still like?
so
you're-
I
you're
tried
from
getting
Chicago.
I tried getting residency, and they told me don't even try. They're like,
Really?
yeah.
So
So now you have a job here
Um,
and you have residency.
Well,
I had
do
to
have
do.
residency.
I had to do after first semester. You have to have. Was it a paycheck? You paid a bill.
Okay.
There might have been one other thing. You had to fill out this form, and then you got in-state tuition, even though you were an out-of-state student.
So
They don't have that in Nebraska anymore.
I inquired about
Yeah.
it, and I
Damn,
went
I
to my
didn't know that was a
counselor and I
thing.
said, "Hey, I
That's-
know because one school is very famous for it, Missouri. If you spend the summer in Missouri, you end up getting in-state tuition at Mizzou."
Complimentary
I inquired
Confederate
about
flag.
it, and they just immediately told me, "Look, if your main reason to be in Nebraska is to go to school, those people really don't get in-state residency." So I asked it, and they told me not even to attempt the process. So
You
that's
should have
just-
told them you're going to work at the zone one day. Like,
Well,
oh, sure, yeah, we got you.
I had told,
You're
yeah.
one of us.
It really, I thought. When did
I-
they get rid of that?
I
That's
have no clue.
unfortunate
But that's something
because
that
that's a recruiting tool for colleges around the area.
And I didn't know anybody personally who did go through that process, who did become a resident outside of, being in coming from out of state and then became
It's
an
a game
in-state
changer.
resident.
You're not
Oh
kidding.
my God. I mean,
Thank
it
God.
would've-
Thank God I had that LES bill.
it absolutely it would have halved my tuition easily. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
on top of that, I had a scholarship. My life would have
Same where I
been
went to school.
a
Same
ton,
deal.
a ton easier if I were able to do it. But that's something that they don't have available to them. But look, back to your question. It's a tricky situation. I think it's a case-by-case situation. But if you are on the 105 to 115, 120 area, and you are someone who, you can pay your own way, you've been comfortably doing it, why enter the portal, right?
Well, I think
you
there's
get
gonna
to
be-
work
don't
your
you-
way up. And we got to understand, too, with special teams and Coach Eckler and his mentality of, hey, we're going to have walk-ons, we're going to have our non-superstars playing special teams, we're going to have this
But
culture.
aren't there 15 of them already?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm throwing out there that Coach Eckler being there
I think
and
you're
being,
going to see more starters on special teams.
I think, well,
Some teams put their best players on special teams.
I'm just going off of what Eckler said at the press conference, and I'm just going off of what Eckler has said in terms of, hey, we were at Tennessee and we used walk-ons and first round picks, and we were doing a great job against ACC special teams. So if they continue to do that,
Or
in
you went to
Nebraska,
school, they did that.
I do think that there could be an effect of some of these guys thinking, hey, maybe 2-3 years down the line, if I continue to be on this team, I may have a chance to play special teams, which could be a really cool experience for guys like that.
I think there's going to be. So let's say they phase this in. I think they will come back with, okay, we can phase it in, but let's have a cap of 120.
I think that
there are players on this roster that, okay, if you want to play and you weren't going to be inside of the 105 and you're thinking about already getting in the portal, shouldn't you just go? Because you want to play. You want to go somewhere to get an opportunity to play. And it's not all of a sudden because they're going to allow you to stay on the roster that you're going to be able to all of a sudden, they're going to look at you differently and move you up the depth chart. There's the other thing. I think you will see a handful of players that after they participate in a scrimmage tomorrow, they'll just be like, you know what? I'm close to graduation. I just want to be a student.
Matt Rule said at the podium during his last presser that there are guys who he told, hey, you're probably not in on the 105. And they told him, hey, I don't care. Like, I'm a Husker. Like, I'm going to be here until you tell me that I no longer have to be on that team. And so if we're talking about the back end guys, the last 15 to 20 dudes on this roster, I definitely think that there is an attitude of like, I just want to be on this football team. I want to say that I want to be in the locker room. I want to be able to hang out with the guys. I want to be a part of this culture. I want to be a part of this run, regardless of whether or not they're playing a lot of football. Now that there are guys,
as long as they're just not gear getters. Because there are guys that hang out just to get some gear and they don't contribute.
Absolutely. Nice gear.
Now, those people have probably been moved out or they've been highly encouraged to, collect their mail somewhere else.
Go to the equipment sale.
But I do think, like, if you're a guy who is like, you are a football player and you want to play football and college football is your dream, I think the right course of action, especially with this staff and what we've seen in terms of a guy like Jacob Bauer rising up the depth chart to the point where, he is going to be, a potential contributor. Mm-hmm. Look at a guy like John Bullock, who rose up the depth chart, was a massive contributor on the team last year. If you are a guy where I want to play college football, I do think the right course of action would be staying for a year, being with this staff, taking advantage of your opportunities, and being the 107, 115 type guy. And then at the end of the year, if you're still in that area, or if you're still on the edge of being cut, or you're not a scholarship player, then I think you enter the transfer portal and look for opportunities elsewhere. Man, but there are some guys on this team who just love to be on this team. There's some guys on the team who just want to be Huskers.
Well, there's part. Okay, the last part, true. I can get that. But there have been guys that have just been here and have hung out and grabbed gear.
1,000,000%.
And they don't. They're not giving you anything. They're not the epitome of the walk-on. They're just like, it's kind of cool to be on the team.
Yeah.
I mean,
pants are comfy.
Hey,
love me a hoodie.
The gear is great. Okay.
Exactly.
I may never get to run out in the tunnel walk. I may have to have my parents, bid to open the doors of the tunnel walk, and that's the closest our family gets to the tunnel walk. By the way, will they have the tunnel walk at the Husker games?
Probably. You'd have to think. How can you be in Memorial Stadium and have any sort of football on the field and not do the tunnel walk? There would be there would be some people who would be upset.
Did they do it? Yeah, I think they did it last year.
I don't remember last year. We went a couple years ago. They did it. I remember that. It's cold.
It just looks like a very odd because guys just kind of meander out onto the field.
There's no hype.
Not as much.
Well, there's no staring down into the eyes of the other opponent being like, yeah, here we go.
Just one of those weird things where the camera pans to the locker room opening up and there's guys in red and white jerseys. But
they still have to do it,
There's because random people coming out onto the field.
Because, there'll be people yelling at the sky being like, we have to do, how can you be a Memorial and not do the tunnel walk? It's a tradition. We're getting rid of traditions. I hate college football. There's going to be people like that. So you got to pander to those people.
And they'll all be back come the end of August.
There definitely are gear collectors and but I definitely think that with the right course of action and being given a second chance here, if on the edge of 105, staying a year and then figuring out where you're at.
I think if you know, you know.
Yeah.
And that's going to ruin my idea of the compliance having a table in the corner.
I want the Monsters Inc. thing where it's like you have the 105 and you guys, you just throughout the day when they make a good play, they rise up or rise down the 105 and it's like you're banging on the table, you're rooting. He's just got to make one more catch and he's in.
Mike Wazowski would have been a great fullback.
Too small.
Hey, what if you're a guy like DeAndre Barnes? What do you do?
Yeah.
All right, Steve Sipple a little bit later. Brian Edwards says, well, there will be lawyers, and I'm sure at some point there will be Congress. More lawsuits, more revenue sharing, more fun. College athletics is fun. Football is fun. Unless you draft the wrong person tonight and it ends up being Ryan Leaf. We're back with more Gary and Matt with Jimmy after this on 1620 The Zone.
And if you are one of those players who becomes a bust, have I got a money-making opportunity for that player? Or you? Yes, that's right. Underdog just became one of the best places to make picks during the NBA playoffs with their extender promo, which I'm going to have to find out about. With the extender, you can play your way to increasingly bigger boost each round of the playoffs. It is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. So at least they hadn't taken that away from us yet. Their app has over 100,000 five-star reviews and millions of players. To play, all you have to do is download the app, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. Come on, Draymond. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. And if you get your picks correct, you can win up to 1,000 times your money, or any money. It's great, even if it's $1. So you can turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. Get paid for being an O or a ball this week on Underdog. It's all been NBA playoffs, and we'll have to check what the slate is the next 2 days. Last night was a little bit rough. The day before, better. I'm looking at the weekend. We got to make up some time. We got to make up some ground, and we will. But first, you can join me by downloading the Underdog app. Sign up with promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. When you make your first deposit, that's promo code ZONE. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/extend.html for details. Make sure you write that all down. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
My mailman, Todd, says that I live near a judge. I'm trying to find out more information. I'd like to meet the judge. I've never met a judge. Don't know a judge. Not related to a judge. Never been in front of a judge that has worn a cloth.
You've never been friends with the judge or anything
No.
like that?
No.
I wanted to meet Judge Hoffines when I was a kid and check out the Astrodome pad he had. But
The only time I've ever been with the judge, my mom's estate, which was challenged by members of her own family that did not come out of her. We had to go, but the judge didn't wear his robe. We just went to their office.
Oh, you got to get the full experience. You
no.
can't put on the robe.
Yeah, no, because then there would have been
Please.
lawyers.
He didn't have the gavel.
Oh,
We were
gotcha.
representing
Yeah.
ourselves.
Okay.
We came prepared. I'd watched a lot of movies and shows that had judges, so I knew what I was getting into.
Go to the Gary. Why have you watched The Firm
Why are you
22 times this year?
Why are you quoting my cousin Vinny? This is serious.
Why is that? Gary, you have A Few Good Men, My Cousin Vinny, and The Firm as your most watched movies.
Like, do people that are judges introduce themselves as judges when they're away from the courthouse?
Just like doctors.
So Gary the judge has never introduced himself to anybody as, hey,
Probably a little
I'm
security
Your Honor,
reason, right?
or anything. I would think so, because I think that the idea is that maybe you meet someone who might have been affected by one of your rulings, whether it be
Yeah.
like a relative of that person or whatnot. So pretty sure his wife as well, my cousin Ariana, she used to be a judge also, and
That's a lot of
does some
judges.
other. Yeah, I live in a family of a lot of doctors and lawyers, and I decided to be a sports broadcaster. So that's always a fun conversation at the Thanksgiving
You'll
table.
have more fun.
I have way more fun. I'm
Oh,
the fun
nice.
cousin
Mhm.
and soon to be fun uncle. So
All right. Congratulations,
Um,
somebody on the sex.
yes, jeez.
By the way, as we get ready for Cam Ward to be drafted number 1 overall, 32 teams, 7 rounds, a day where lives are changed. Fates are decided. Dynasties are born and the clock is always ticking. This is draft day. Can I interest
Holy Jim Nance. Good Lord. That
Hey.
was a good one.
Can I interest you in the 2026 quarterback class?
Arch Manning,
Drew Aller, Sellers, Nussmeier,
Nico Amamilavalava,
Klubnik, Arizona State, Sam
Levitt.
Mateer from Oklahoma, which was
Yeah.
a good pickup in the portal
He'll
from
have a good
Washington State.
Who's the
Carson Beck, Dante Moore,
South
who will be the
Carolina?
quarterback at Oregon.
South Carolina?
Sellers.
Yeah.
And then Malachi Nelson. Remember him?
Yeah.
The 2026 class could be loaded when
I
it comes
think
to quarterbacks.
I lost the tweet, but last year they had a prop for the 2026 draft
Hmm.
right after the draft. And do you know who was the number one, betting odds could go number 1 overall?
Nussmeier.
No. Carson Beck.
You think if you're a Miami fan with Carson Beck, the fact that he cheated on a hot twin would impact how you look at him and his decision making?
Did you see with the viral clip of her talking about him?
Yeah, they both went at one is engaged to Jake Ferguson from Jimmy's Dallas Cowboys.
Congrats to
I
Jake.
saw that. Yeah.
They went after him. But I mean,
He might be Bo Callahan.
True.
No one showed up to his birthday party, Sonny. Not one of his teammates.
That's scathing. Hey, if the man can't make right decisions in relationships, what's to say at 3rd down and 5 against the Knowles, or in this case, because they play Florida this year, that he's going to make the right decision? I mean, I think you have to factor that in as a fan.
He fumbled
Hey,
that.
do you remember who
Should've just invited
Bo
her to join.
Callahan's agent was in that movie?
Bob Sugar?
No.
I can see him.
Come on. It makes,
I'm looking
by the
right
way,
at him. Looking right at
it
him.
makes even better sense now as to why Sonny passed on Bo, if you consider who his agent was. The actor. It was P. Diddy.
Oh. Yeah, that was not on my bingo card.
P. Diddy was Bo Callahan's agent. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you remember who played Ray
agents
Jennings?
Agents get in trouble, and next thing you know, they're in front of judges in Manhattan federal court.
That was a great cast. It was Terry Crews was the father of Ray Jennings, who was played by Arian Foster, which was incredible.
He was good.
I liked Arian Foster,
I did
man.
too. my favorite Texans running back.
He had a nice NFL career.
I know, the hamstring. He does great podcasting now for Barstool Sports.
Who
But he
doesn't?
doesn't really talk about sports. He talks about like everything other than sports.
You know what? When he was playing, he didn't like talking about the game.
He's,
He was probably one of those guys that didn't watch much football.
he is a really good trivia player. They do like the trivia
Yeah.
games and stuff like that. He's one of their top dudes for it.
All right, we'll have more on the draft, which begins at 7 o'clock tonight. Good luck to everybody out there. Watch Draft Day, which is a tradition, and prepare yourself for Schefter tweets, among other things. But we have to finish this hour because the portal has now closed. The Moose has said portal closed for college basketball. You can still go shopping, but you can't enter. Bart Torvik has come out with his preseason ratings as of right now.
How are we looking?
Creighton 17, Nebraska 38, Omaha 129.
Oh,
There was a point last year that Omaha was 316. Got to go find a couple of other players. But Creighton 17, Nebraska 38.
hey, bubble talk.
And Omaha 129. Thank you to Bart Torvik. We like Bart. Now we won't talk about Bart until November, but we got some Bart. We got some Bart action. Portal closed for college basketball. I'm waiting for those stragglers who jumped into the portal close to midnight the other night, that now their paperwork will be processed and they'll be announced today.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
We'll see. All right, halftime. Coming up a little bit later, Steve Sipple will join us. Also, Brian Edwards on Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, draft day. It'll be another quiet opening day for Nebraska. But day number 2 could be kind of interesting. Day number 3 could be kind of interesting. Need to change that. All 3 days are interesting. There is a lot of discussion about the best and worst drafts.
Yes.
So let me just, Todd Blackledge was here 2 weeks ago today, and he sat in this studio, and I had to refrain from saying, what in the heck happened? So Todd Blackledge was selected 7th overall in 1983. He would only have a 49% completion percentage with the Kansas City Chiefs, 26 touchdown passes, 32 interceptions.
He was no Bill Kinney.
He was in a draft that had a couple of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Actually, there were 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the 83 draft.
And a star Ace Ventura pet detective.
Todd Blackledge selected at 7th overall. After him, selected in the same draft. Hurts. Jim Kelly and Dan Marino. Okay? So that's, as a Chiefs fan, that is the worst first round pick in the history of the franchise. It's Todd Blackledge in 1983.
I wonder what Brett Veach would have done with that draft.
You think I think I have you beat.
You know what he might have done? So if he's in that draft, now that was a draft where, kids, sit back and relax because I'm about to tell you something here. 2 of the top 3 picks in that draft were running backs. Elway went 1, and then Dickerson and Kurt Warner. And then Chris Hinton, the big lineman from Northwestern, went 4th.
Kurt Warner really good before he tore his knee up.
Billy Ray Smith, who was the linebacker at Arkansas, got drafted by the Chargers. Here's what he probably would have done. Jimbo Covert, who was in the Hall of Fame. So that's a draft. Let's see. Elway, Dickerson, Covert, Bruce Matthews, Marino, Darryl Green, Jim Kelly. I think that's all the Hall of Famers from the first round.
Yeah. I don't know.
Darryl Green, Texas A&I Javelinas. Now A&M Kingsville.
For a while, I would have said, hey, I got you beat with Trubisky going before Watson and Mahomes. But unfortunately, Deshaun hasn't continued the success that he had in Houston and Cleveland. So maybe, and honestly, I think I would have rather have had Mitchell Trubisky as opposed to the fiasco that happened with Deshaun Watson in Houston and then what happened in Cleveland. But here's the thing about Pat Mahomes.
Tell me.
He's good.
A lot of people
tell me about Patrick Mahomes.
A lot of people get on me about the whole, you guys drafted Trubisky instead of Mahomes, and how could you do that? And it's a terrible pick. And Mahomes ended up being one of the greatest of all time. Let me make a couple things very clear to you.
Are you about to justify it?
If we drafted Patrick Mahomes 2nd overall, we would have gotten roasted just the same, probably maybe even more initially than when we drafted Trubisky, okay? Because I don't want all these draft people, these snots, these snoots.
Hey, you're one of them.
All right? But I'm just at, they act as if they didn't all have Trubisky ahead of Mahomes in terms of prospects. They act as if they themselves didn't rank the North Carolina quarterback over Patrick Mahomes, okay? So, if you are a pundit who's just follows the NFL in general and you're getting on me for Mitch Trubisky being drafted by the Bears, that's fine. But if you're a draft guy, I don't want to hear it from the draft guys because they all rank Trubisky ahead of Mahomes. So shut your mouth. Okay?
So full disclosure, and I said this on air. Now, a lot of people thought Mahomes would go in the 2nd round in 17.
And they had a good quarterback at the time.
And when they drafted him, when they traded up, I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, he played in the Big 12. And I'd seen him play plenty. For about 30 minutes, I was thinking that this was not a good pick. And then I was driving home, and I had ESPN's coverage of the NFL draft on the radio. And they interviewed No. You know what? I had 810. I had WHB out of Kansas City on in the car because I was driving to Richie's party. I was listening to the Chiefs coverage. And they had Andy Reid on. And he went into this long discussion about why Patrick Mahomes is the kind of quarterback that he wants. And then he said the key thing is we'll essentially be able to redshirt him with Alex Smith. It will be great that he can learn from
I
Alex
remember
Smith.
that.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have to walk in and play right away. And it's not like the Chiefs were terrible.
No, they're a
they
playoff
were a
team.
playoff team with Alex Smith. So about 30 minutes afterwards, I was like, I don't know. But once I heard Andy Reid on the radio talking about why they selected him, I was like, I'm sold.
They would
He knows
they
ball.
would have won a
working.
playoff game if Mariota didn't throw a touchdown pass to Mariota. I mean, people forget that those Chiefs teams were still very competitive.
Well, there was a
During that
game.
time.
There was a game in the old RCA Dome. Kind of sucked.
There's been two of them.
You don't have to
Yeah.
think about that anymore, all right? You don't have to.
Oh,
Those
no.
days are done.
I think about
dog days
I think
are
about
over.
the Super Bowl, and then I immediately fast forward to Rice catching passes, and boy, he looks good. Hollywood Brown. Allen writes in, he goes, I was pissed when Kansas City drafted Mahomes.
You
Alex
were.
Smith coming off a playoff run. Chiefs had many needs. This is why fans are not the GMs.
I mean, people were not happy when so I don't want to hear about the whole why didn't draft Mahomes. Also, too, I know, Jimmy knows, everybody listening here knows
This
that
isn't
if
Matt.
Patrick Mahomes got drafted by the Bears, he would not have been successful. Okay, we would have found
would play for a great head coach.
we would have found a way
That has
to
a Chiefs
ruin-
tie.
Who is now
Do you-
back to being his OC.
Do you know when I knew that this Trubisky thing wasn't going to work out outside of when they picked him? Because I was not on the Trubisky. I was never on
when
the
Goodell
Trubisky
announced
train.
it?
No. When Matt Nagy, which is funny you talk about this because I wasn't even thinking about this. You talk about how Andy Reid, right, talked about how he loved Mahomes and how he was a big Mahomes guy. They get Matt Nagy, and they're like, Matt, you interview when he got hired, right, and he was going to coach Trubisky. They're like, Matt, you were a part of this draft process with Mitch. You had an interview with Mitch during when you're in Kansas City. Well, what did you think about him? When you went through that process, he literally goes, "Yeah, I wasn't that big of a fan of him." I was like, "What?" Even if you lie, just lie and just be like, "No, we really wanted him at 10, but we knew that Chicago was in love with him, and we were just really, really impressed with the type of prospect he was." No, Matt Nagy was just he was fine, he was okay. I wasn't heads over heels about him. He didn't say oh, he was terrible. Oh, we don't I don't like him or anything like that. But it was very much meh. He loved Mahomes though. That's part of the reason Mahomes got drafted was because of Nagy.
Matt Nagy had a really cool. Remember during the COVID draft, he had all of his play charts were plastered on his wall.
Yeah, I thought about
That was a
that.
pretty cool room. Whatever happened to that room?
I think they all got torn down.
That was a great room.
It was a good looking
That
room.
was pretty cool.
It was funny. I was in my car and I was looking at my big boards and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can make the Matt Nagy room with all these.
There is activity in Lincoln today. So it's raining here in Lincoln. It is you won't be able to go to Lenoma Beach and hang out. Maybe you went to North Miami Beach.
Hey, it's got
chilly.
raining though.
So we are on track at 8:08 Central Time that Marty Brown from Creighton Prep is back from Miami and will be in Lincoln today to observe practice.
The sun comes out in Lincoln. We can promise you it happens.
So I'm on the day of the draft. Thank you to Brett Ciancia at Pick Six Previews. I think I say thank you. What would you guys think, based on the draft, is running back you?
All time?
All time. Most running backs drafted all time. Running back you, according to the draft, is
I would guess Nebraska, but then I would say maybe Alabama after that.
so USC is number one.
Oh, shoot.
Oklahoma, Ohio State, Nebraska, with 44 running backs taken.
Jeez.
But off the top of my head, just 4 since 2000. Alexander, Halou, Burkhead, Amir. Is that right? That sound right?
That
Since
sounds right.
Beginning in the 2000 draft when Dan Alexander got
That
drafted.
sounds perfect.
So Marty Brown, I'm not tying this in together, so do not lose your mind.
Sure.
So Marty Brown still on track to visit Nebraska today. And he's come back from Miami. Now they have quite a few running backs at Miami.
Mhm.
So
They have
what does the
Hurricanes,
bag
too.
look like? It has been reported numerous places that he's going to have Cal and Kansas State, but at least he is on campus.
Yes.
Now that they have him on campus, how aggressive does Nebraska get? Because it's reasonable to think that if he's going to visit Lincoln, Nebraska still has a chance. I want to remind everybody that there is no state income tax in Florida, but in California, that income tax
There are many
is
taxes.
a lot.
I mean,
Just you got
There's stadiums on a fault line. Very
peop-
dangerous.
and also I don't know what kind of bag they have. We're talking about Cal Berkeley now.
yeah.
I just want to remind people of that. The young people out there, when you're
Bag is
thinking about
something.
relocating and going places, California, high tax, Florida, no state income tax.
Yeah.
Manhattan, they have
Also, too,
tornadoes.
I think
Often.
the Imilava family might end up owing money.
That's
Which is crazy to think about because unfortunately Madden might have to pay back to Arkansas and Nico might have to pay back to Tennessee.
so. This is your pitch, and again, I look at Miami's running back room, and they got some depth there. It's not like they're, like the vacancy sign out and they
Sure.
need a running back. But for all intents and purposes, if you listen to Miami people, it went well. Nobody on those recruiting sites ever say the visit sucked. It was awful. He had bed bugs. They did not have any room service. Like nobody ever says that. But you would think that Miami put the full court press on.
Sure.
But again, he's visiting Lincoln, so Nebraska is still in the game. That's still on as of right now 8-11. But think about this. If you are making a pitch as Nebraska, because maybe Nebraska says, you know what? We're not pursuing anybody except for a punter. Maybe we have some bag to get into the game. You have to think about that. But what is your pitch outside of the bag? And we don't know if Nebraska would try and match what Miami's doing, but
Sure.
but they have some money.
Yeah.
Outside of the bag and that you're a local kid, what would be your pitch to Marty Brown to turn down Miami, Cal, and K-State and play 3 years at Nebraska?
So I have 3 pitches. First off, the Osborne Legacy Complex. No $50 fee for Marty Brown. You can take a free tour of it himself. I mean, look, they've invested so much money. They've talked that up so much. You have to, I mean, in a certain way, you have to make this look like, hey, look at how much better you can get. Look at the recovery that we have. Look at the facilities that we have. You really have to lean on that. The second pitch is playing time, right? You talk about Miami, having running backs in the room. Hey, Marty, you are going to play. Whether you're number one or
That
whether
should be the first
whether
pitch.
you're number two. Well, I mean, in no particular order. Whether you're number one or whether you're number two, you are going to play. You are going to have carries. You are going to run rampant at times here at Memorial Stadium. And I know you said outside of being a local kid, but I would really emphasize the fact of, hey, your parents can come to every single home game, right? Like your parents are going to be able to see you play at Memorial Stadium week in, week out. I don't know if you can say the same thing about Cal. I don't know if you can say the same thing about Miami. You're going to be able to have.
He has a girlfriend. Do the Bear Bryant and recruit the girlfriend.
Now on that point, because you may not be aware of this, there are more and more NIL deals that include family travel.
And I wonder if Miami has added that in there, if that is going to be a factor. So, but I think the number one thing just has to be like, there is no argument. There is no secrecy. There is nothing when it comes to Marty Brown playing. Marty Brown, if he joins this team, will play. He will carry the ball. He has the experience, more so than any other running back behind Emmett Johnson. I don't know, right now, Gabe Irvin Jr. is the third running back over at Kansas State. Miami's got a crowded running back room. And Cal, I mean, there's a reason why all those running backs got up and left, right? I mean, and there's also a reason why, had they even filled some of those? I haven't seen that they filled any of them either.
That's why it would be wide open, like that hole of Kansas State blockers for Mr. Farley down in Manhattan.
But
so
you said Farley. I always think Terrell.
I remember got in trouble for saying that hole was so wide that 2 fat ladies could have fit through it.
Also,
never came back to doing media. Now he's got a radio show. Wild world out there.
I think the 3 years of eligibility
T-Buck is awesome.
3 years of eligibility too helps Nebraska and the development and how they view things and how they want to get guys to the NFL and that pitch and the fact that the NFL draft is today and the fact that there are 2 guys, one of which they really helped develop into a draft pick, is probably going to get drafted on day 2.
So a couple of things in there. One, I don't think you can lean on your local kid because is that the only reason you're getting a visit? Yes, it is. Not the only reason, but it helps that you are 45 minutes from his hometown.
Mhm.
Okay, and
It gets you in the door.
You are Nebraska, and I mean, you reached out when you went into the portal. You reached out to his management team, because if you look at it this way, if Marty Brown was from Chicago,
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's a lot of people named Marty Brown in Chicago. That's a very common name.
probably.
Would he have Nebraska on his list? Would Nebraska thinking, okay, we kind of like our depth. We think Parker will be okay. We'll get him through the summer. We'll get him back on the right path, and we'll get something out of him. We're good. Or because you're close.
You grew up here.
Yeah.
He's probably a Husker fan.
But again,
yeah.
I think Nebraska becomes aggressive doesn't mean they're going to win. Now, the thing about facilities, and there's no doubt that Nebraska's facilities have taken a monster jump with that place. But talking to a lot of the recruits that come through and we interview on the air, their facilities are not number one.
Okay.
Because, and then I think coaches look at the facilities as they are a great benefit to the players that are already here.
Mhm.
Okay, they help us get us better. Instead of selling that as a recruiting point, because if you're a coach and you're selling your program, do you want a kid to choose you just because
You got
had
cool
better
stuff.
facilities?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot
That's a good
of a lot
point.
of schools now it's an arms race, so they spend so much on facilities. Not saying that's not wrong.
Sure.
I think facilities are built for the people that are already in the program. I don't think they're built for recruiting because I think that's the wrong way to go. I think it's to help the people that are in the program get better day by day. Because if a kid says to me, Coach, hey man, that light show you guys had in the locker room, that sold me. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But what about the other stuff where we showed you what you would look like in our offense?
Sure.
No, Coach, man, those lights, that was cool. Nobody else ever had that. That was kind of neat.
I wonder, see, I'm thinking about this and you talk about the facilities, right? But you definitely have to combine having good coaching that's able to develop players and create a relationship with players along with using those facilities, right? But about relationships, because I just thought about this, right? Building relationships with players.
Mhm.
I feel like there's almost a difference between a transfer portal recruiter and a high school recruiter. And the fact that when you are a transfer portal recruiter, you have to develop a relationship in which a guy trusts you enough in what? Like 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours of
Speed dating.
conversation.
You ever speed dating?
And
You ever done speed dating?
I
Jimmy?
haven't.
Speed dating. Did a lot of speed things, but never dating.
And
A lot of small talk.
as opposed to high school recruiting, that's over months, maybe even years at some points where you're talking consistently and talking constantly and getting to know the family and getting to know their high school coaches and whatnot. And so when I think you talk about portal recruiting and you talk about speed dating and, you need to have a good portal
That is
recruiter, a guy who
fascinating,
can
yeah.
make a relationship. I also do think the flashy things help more so in that type of recruiting than it may in a high school recruiting, right? Just like if you're kind of speed dating,
No, I
if
think-
you got the
I think-
nice watch and a lot
no,
of money
portal-
and you look good.
Portal guys want to get in and get out. They want to know where they fit,
Yeah.
how much money they're going to get, and how we're going to get this done. The high school recruit, you're able to spend more time with
Yeah.
because they probably come on an unofficial and you've been able to show them around. They've been able to see anything. Portal guys, most times portal guys, and this is coming from coaches, portal guys have done their due diligence more than the high school guy in your program.
Mhm.
Okay. They don't want a dog and pony show. They want to show up and they want to know where they're going to fit, what the financials are going to be like, and when do we get going. They don't want to be like, okay, now here, because they've already been recruited.
Sure.
Remember, they've already been recruited out of high school. So there are some, to your point a little bit, there are some coaches that I think are better high school recruiting than they are portal.
1,000,000%.
First of all, go talk to Pat. This is the Matt rule.
Yeah.
Because that's what Pat Stewart's going to take care of. Rule doesn't want to take care of the money. Okay. Because that can be an uncomfortable conversation with the head coach. But the GM takes care of it. Hey, you got to go up and talk to Pat about the money. You want to talk about playing time and if we're going to complete that pass on 3rd and 6.
I'm your guy.
Kid, come see me. But I think Rule likes the high school recruiting because Rule's a relationship guy.
Yeah.
Not saying Rule can't get a quick relationship going with the portal,
But it's one of his strengths.
but
it's really
what
good.
I
Without
think,
a doubt.
I think when you're talking to high school kids, you're more likely to speak the same language, or you're a Rocco Spindler and you say the right things and you can see, okay, now we're bouncing things off of each other. But the Spindler thing happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was here for a week and he was like, okay, do I want to live, like where the apartment that you guys are going to provide for me, where do I get to choose? Do I get to live downtown? Do I get to live in South Lincoln? So there are probably coaches. So that's why guys on your staff, I think there are certain guys that are designated are the portal closer.
I would
that
love.
They are quick, boy. They are savvy. They talk it, and they're like, hey, look at, you know what? There's a lot of people that when they get in relationships, they're like, hey, this is what I got.
Yeah.
Either take it or leave it. And you know what? If you say, nah, I'm good, you're like, okay, we're good. Where you're recruiting a high school guy, you're like,
you're taking them to dinner, you're paying for the drinks, you're going to sugar. Hey, I think that's a question I want to ask Matt Rule. Hey, who is your...
And ask it like that. Hey.
Well, I don't do that. Hey, Coach.
Hey, Coach Matt Rule. Hey, Matt Rule is Matt McMaster.
Hey, Matt McMaster, 1620 here. Hey, Coach, I was wondering, what are the differences between high school recruiting and portal recruiting?
Where did you get that hat?
Where'd
you get that hat? Where can I get the hat at?
Where's that stutter coming from? Where's that stutter? I mispronounce things. I don't stutter, though. Coach.
You did have a strong Chicago accent coming. I was waiting for you to start talking about Bears.
Hey, Coach Rule, I got a quick question here. Who's your best portal recruiter?
Coach, would you rather be drafting today or coaching at Nebraska? I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, it was really funny when Matt Rule, he made the comments to Albert Breer, a very shining remarks about Shedeur Sanders, saying that, I would take him number 3 overall for sure if I was the Giants, and because of the toughness that he has. And then all the comments below are like, what does Matt Rule know about drafting?
Just trying.
His couple draft picks with Carolina weren't bad.
No, but I'm not talking. I mean, I don't. Yeah. It's not that I'm aware of like all his draft history, but it was funny to see those comments.
Did he? I don't know how involved he was in the draft in Carolina. That was such a dysfunctional front office.
Well, he brought up that one story about how he claims that he wanted to look at Brock Purdy and he was interested in drafting him, and he was just told, no, we are not looking at him, which is kind of strange when your coach says, hey, can we look at a player? And he's just told no right away. That's kind of weird. Like, at least do your due diligence.
Yeah, Matt Rule. You're having a draft of your current team. Who would be the number 1 pick? And if you had to trade a player, who would it be? Who would you be? I just think he didn't want the Deion and Deion's clones smoke. Hey, it is Colorado football is wild because they're
like Swifties.
Kind of. I mean, they're on social media. They will attack you, but it's the wildest dynamic of you have coach fans. And then you have people that actually exist that are diehard, longtime Colorado fans.
Yeah.
It's very rare do you get that anywhere else. Is North Carolina going to experience that? Are there Belichick fans?
I don't think there are.
Against the North Carolina fans? Because at Colorado, you have that dynamic where the longtime fan, when you see 2 numbers retired, are like, whoa. The new fan is like, that's how we do it.
There were only 3.
Deion figures.
There are only 3 people.
Chad Brown. Alfred Williams, Bill McCartney.
My gag reflex almost.
Cordell, Michael Westbrook. But the longtime fan is going, did you not see the play in the big house?
What a throw that was.
It's a weird dynamic out of Colorado. But, man, you don't want the Deion smoke, man, because them clones, they glaze and then they get at you.
There are only 3 athletes I can think like that who have that other athletes who have that type of following where you only root for them. And that is LeBron James, because there are people who are like, I'm not a Cavaliers fan or like, I'm a LeBron fan.
That's a good example.
Yeah. Russell Westbrook, prime Russ there was a big Russ. I'm telling you right now.
I do like people that have a rational confidence.
But I'll give you one right now.
I always kind of liked Russ. I'm not going to lie.
Derrick Rose had that too. There were a lot in Chicago. There were a ton of people who were like Knicks fans when he was getting big minutes with the Knicks. When he went to the Timberwolves, there were a ton of they were rooting, looking at Derrick's numbers every night. If Derrick had a really good game, would get posted on Chicago Twitter or Chicago Instagram. Those The three outside of Dion that I can know that, like, hey, we root for the athlete, not for the team.
Quick question before the break. You brought up Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why the Clippers and the Nuggets are on NBA TV tonight, and Oklahoma City, Memphis is on TNT?
That's gross.
It's just bad. It's just the NBA being the NBA.
that's
But I mean, the
gross.
reason is that the draft is on ESPN, so they're getting,
Oh.
they're getting knocked over because ESPN is having draft coverage, and
Okay.
so as opposed to
No. That's not
No.
my
oh sure
my question. Is why is the better game on NBA TV and the
Which we don't
series
have.
that has been a blowout and is bad, and you knew it was bad going in, is on TNT?
those are predetermined, right?
No.
Oh, they
No.
pick them?
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Mhm.
I don't know why. It's just
That's why do you think the Pacers
it's
are always
incredible
on
to
NBA
me
TV?
in sports in general how many
the
simple
Raptors.
decisions that are made, like that should be made, that are just not made in general. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, it would be really easy to just put the better
That
game
makes
on
zero
the board.
sense. I guess I'm watching the draft.
There's no requirement, right?
Nope. The networks that
plus
have it
5.5,
tonight, is it
though.
TNT or ESPN?
So it's TNT.
Okay, then yeah, I don't get that.
I don't get that at all.
So
Makes
they
zero sense.
And I know that TNT is being faded out, but that's the
Fading
Clippers,
out the good
Clippers
game.
Nuggets. I mean, it's been one of the best series going.
It's been by far the best.
It's
series
going
going.
7 games.
So maybe this is the night that the Inside the NBA crew takes off. They're
Get
like,
the third string.
we
get
are
left
not,
go.
We are
and, yeah.
not talking about Memphis, Oklahoma
Shout
City.
out Hastings.
I mean, come on. Like, they're off 50% of the time.
Not during the postseason.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Kenny
No.
Smith does
They're
a
our
really
spring
good
friends.
job.
I mean,
But-
off. Like they're on. They're on.
I don't watch. I'm not a big Inside the NBA guy.
It is the one thing that puts me in a good mood.
There are people that
big deal.
watch only that show and don't watch the games.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not that way.
I still have
like
college
to watch
memories
the
of
games.
staying
I
up.
don't really. It's not my. If I'm being honest with you, like when I was younger, I really liked it. Who we play for, gone fishing, EJ's Nito, stat of the night. Especially when they had Chris Webber. Run through the tape, like the whole run of the board. It was cool. These last couple of years, I've been a little bit.
He
out.
prefers the inside the
you're-
NBA in the early 90s
you're
with Vince
an-
Cellini.
You probably would like Ahmad Rashad to come back on Saturday mornings with Summer Sanders.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe it will with
Yeah.
NBC.
I-
You also don't like fun.
What's Willow Bay
I
doing
don't
these days?
know. I don't like.
You don't like it. You don't like entertainment.
I think the NBA has suffered from the fact that you have these guys who are like at the top of the mountain in terms of entertainment, and they actively say just negative things all the time.
I do. You like me.
all the time. Like there was, yeah, I know, but that's different.
We're friends.
You're not promoting a product.
I'm
okay?
promoting myself.
promoting
I'm
the show.
promoting 1620 The
They're-
Zone,
they're-
this show.
They're promoting
Take
a
5.
product, and literally, you have those guys who are the most watched show, and they're like, I don't watch the Orlando Magic. I'm not familiar with this guy's game.
They're there for entertainment.
They're
Yeah.
telling the truth.
I'm
It's
not.
obvious.
I'm not there. For
I don't
entertainment.
watch the Orlando
You're a
Magic.
button-up serious guy. Some of us like to be a little.
I just watch the game.
Man, college, load a bowl, 12:30, watch Inside the NBA. You laugh off 5 pounds. Your abs were ripped.
I
because
loved
of
it back in the day. Back during the KD and LeBron are at the top of the mountain, and OKC's got the young bulls, and it's like, holy crap.
I'm talking about
They
when
could
Oklahoma
they
City
could
was
be
just a
great.
city in Oklahoma.
Now, last couple of years-
Lucky for you, it'll be still around next year.
Mhm.
You'll be able to enjoy it even more.
Don't tell me you like the ESPN excrement at halftime.
Okay. I don't like I don't, but I do
That's when we
like
changed the channel.
pregame show with Malika and Brian Windhorst, and when Richard Jefferson goes on there. I do like the Inside the NBA crew, especially when they had Zach Lowe, but now he's at the Ringer.
But shout out Wendy. Shout out Omaha.
Or not the
That's
Inside
all
the
I got.
NBA. What do they call it? The
I don't know. Doesn't
Prime
matter.
time or-
primetime
whatever they
NBA
call
or whatever? Yeah.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Steve Sipple, big NBA fan. He will join us coming up at about 9:15. Brian Edwards as well. Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, the NFL draft tonight. The second overall pick to Cleveland. They'll get a DB, a wide receiver, and an elite bass angler who
Yes.
probably in Cleveland will hang out at, Rocky and Chagrin Rivers, which they small and largemouth bass in Cleveland.
Travis Hunter catches big fish. It's impressive. It's
canny.
impressive.
So that's why he's going to go second overall.
There's some people who are just like good at everything. Do you have friends of yours who it's like no matter what they do, like they're great at like, all the backyard games, and they were great at high school, and they played 3 different sports, and then all of a sudden it's like you go to trivia and they know everything about this, and then they go and they hunt and they fish. Like it isn't to be friends with those people is really difficult because like thief is the comparison of joy, and I never have any joy when I'm around my friends like that. I feel like Travis Hunter is pretty similar in that regard.
Well, we're going to find out. His influencer girlfriend will be sitting at the table with him tonight, along with Lil Wayne, his dad,
Is there a
and
bet?
his brother Travis.
Is there a bet that she becomes the viral moment? That'd be a great prop bet. What prospect at the green room is a part of the viral moment that happens there? He's got to be minus money easily.
Oh, I don't know anything about like Cam Ward, like his people or his family or whatever.
Who are the 17 people that are going to be there tonight?
Will not be Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
A couple of emails into the Equitable Bank inbox. This is from TC about the 83 draft and Hall of Famers.
Hell yes.
Richard Dent, part of that 83 draft.
Yep.
To piggyback on the lack of championships by the Bears of the 80s, Richard Dent was pissed off that the Bears didn't win more. He blamed Ditka for mishandling the quarterback situation. Severe blamed Ditka for screwing up the Saints.
I see a common
He didn't
theme
mention Ditka or Buddy Ryan in his Hall of Fame speech. Whoa, he didn't mention Buddy Ryan?
Yeah.
Really?
They had beef too.
Whoa.
Toward the end,
Italian beef?
Buddy and
Oh,
Buddy and I remember watching the 30 for 30 and very well known that Buddy and Mike at the end of it were not big fans. And also as well, Buddy, it felt like he was more so the coach of the team and beloved by the team than Ditka, which made Mike a little bit unhappy, which is a little curious. You don't really hear Rex and Rob Ryan say too many glowing things or anything about Mike Ditka often.
Who would have thought we live in a world where Nebraska will have to face a Rob Ryan defense?
Again? I thought they did that at Arrowhead in 98.
Seen some of the videos of him at USC?
I have not. Are they?
That'd be interesting.
Are they out there?
Yeah, very active in practice.
I cannot stop watching Andrew Luck playing football at Stanford.
That's the captain.
I can just continuously just watch him in his snap count and his setup. So good. He's handing off the ball. He's still got it, man. He should have.
He loves Stanford. He threw out the first pitch at their softball game that they drew the record crowd the other day.
Yeah.
So he throws out the first pitch, and then there were 13,000 people there. He fist bumped everybody. He loves Stanford.
He's a great guy.
Pretty campus.
God.
Chris writes in to the Equitable Bank inbox. Can you take a minute to discuss why did Nebraska completely blow the recruitment of Marty Brown out of high school? What happened with his high school recruitment? Was he completely off the radar? I don't know his high school stats. How did everyone whiff on him originally? Pull up a chair. Let me tell you something. First of all, do not quote high school stats.
Okay. I agree.
I'm not a high school stat guy.
Neither am I.
Some of them are off the chains, like Jet Tomlin throws for 47 touchdown passes. That's impressive. But you should not be quoting high school stats. High school stats are not all created the same.
No.
The thing with Marty Brown, so he was offered by Miami of Ohio and Ball State out of high school, so 2 MAC schools. I think Nebraska wanted him as a preferred walk-on. He came down for a winter visit, but it was not serious. They may have given him, because Nebraska did this with John Bullock as well. Hey, you have to meet this X measurable in terms of speed, and then we'll give you a scholarship. But even if you don't, we'd love to have you in the program. I don't know if they gave that to Marty Brown. But this is how it works with guys out of high school in Nebraska that need to go somewhere and then they blow up. Now, Marty had a nice high school career, and he was one of the better running backs in the Metro, but he wasn't one of those running backs where you watched him on Friday nights and went, that guy should be playing in the Big Ten. And he made the best choice of his career to go north to Fargo, and they probably made the best choice to redshirt him last year. And then he plays this year, and he takes full advantage of playing in that scheme where, a little bit of Nebraska is where they make running backs read with the zone blocking. At North Dakota State, they go downhill.
Yeah.
So, that would be an adjustment a little bit, but it was kind of a similar style that he had at Prep. Also, he was running behind a great offensive line at Prep. So he bet on himself. And I don't think he went to North Dakota State saying, you know what, I'm going to be good here and I'm going to transfer to Miami, Cal, K-State, or Nebraska. But he went there and he had success. And then you're like, you know what, I can play at the next level. So it's actually a good story. It's nothing about Nebraska. Nebraska looked at him in high school and they were like everybody else in the country that was at the Power 5 level or the Power 4 level, Power 5 at the time, and said, we don't see him being a scholarship guy. And now, 2 years later, into his college career, he's going to be a scholarship guy and he's going to get paid, and it's great. Yeah. That's how this is supposed to work. And there are plenty of Marty Brown stories that are in this state that get overlooked, by not just Nebraska, but other schools. They go somewhere else and they have great success, and then they parlay it into a good payday.
Well, I think stories like that are good for college sports. They're good for college football because I think that we've always had this mindset in high school recruiting, especially before the NIL days, of like Power 5, Power 5, Power 5. I want to get to the Power 5. And you looked at going to non-Power 5 schools or FCS schools as I didn't reach my goal. I didn't get to my accomplishment. Now that you have these stories of where you got guys who play at those smaller schools who end up not only getting to Power 5, but then making money at the Power 5 level, it almost makes those smaller schools more attractive to some recruits who may not be getting the attention they deserve or may not be getting the offers that they want. And so for every like Nico and Madden story where they're just out there trying to, get as much money as possible and cash in and negotiate and whatever, there's these pretty good great football stories of guys betting on themselves and being rewarded. And like, it's good for the sport when it happens.
I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I'm thinking of like the FCS schools. Like the FCS football schools are being treated like mid-major in college basketball. And I think it's easier to replenish yourself in basketball than it is in football, because is a difference maker in FBS on a scholarship roster of 105 jumping down to an FCS where they can make a difference, where you'll see some mid-majors that get that seventh or eighth guy that will go to a mid-major, and all of a sudden they're a difference maker.
Is it?
So I think the FCS, they get it.
Yeah.
And it's taken a little bit longer compared to mid-major basketball.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the backstory. Like, was North Dakota State surprised that he left? I mean,
sure.
He had a big year, but he has 3 years of eligibility left. Or did somebody get in his ear and he got some people represented him and they said, hey, you got to get out of Fargo.
Well, yeah.
You're going to go from Fargo to Coral Gables.
I don't know if Marty Brown...
Not quite the same place.
And I'm just going to probably guess that Marty Brown didn't go to North Dakota State thinking, hey, I'm going to be here for 2 years, and then I'm going to go, after I have a really good season, I'm going to go and play Power 5 football and make money.
Maybe after the first blizzard.
The reason why I say these stories are good for college football is because the concern is that with the upping of scholarships, right, you're going to have those 20 guys, those 20 extra scholarships who are going to go to Power 5 schools as opposed to going to smaller FCS non-Power 5 schools, right? But I say that Marty Brown's story and stories like that are good because maybe that'll encourage more guys who are the last 20 scholarships or the last 20 guys on the roster to look around and say, hey, maybe being on the back end of Power 5 schools isn't as beneficial to me as being on the front end or in the middle or having opportunities in these smaller schools. And so I think the potential cascade effect of, oh my God, more and more of these guys from FCS are having great seasons and going to places and developing in a way that I want to develop at. That could lead to better things for the smaller schools.
FCS is, I don't think FCS, I'm a fan of 105 full scholarships.
No, I don't think they, absolutely not.
And another thing, everybody thought, okay, the JUCOs are going to benefit. You know what has hurt JUCOs? It's easier to get into college.
Yeah.
It used to be very difficult to get into college. And then also, if you want to transfer, you had to sit out a year. You go to a JUCO, you don't have to sit out a year, and you can leave a JUCO and go to your school, and you don't have to sit out. But this is an interesting time for FCS schools on how they're going to navigate the roster and recruiting and retaining. Because, man, I have seen more like really good FCS players here in the spring portal that have just bailed.
Well-
like good players that all of a sudden they pop into the portal and they have representation. So somebody was like, okay, you didn't in the winter go around. Maybe you didn't get the love that you were expecting, but now we got some teams that are desperate and have money. Here you go. Let me walk you into the
Sure.
portal. And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
the Miamis and the Boston colleges and the Clemsons of the world all of a sudden are more interesting because timing is everything with the portal.
Well,
Timing is absolutely everything.
no matter how you slice it, all of these rules and regulations that have been established and where we've gone with college sports has absolutely crapped all over the FCS schools and the smaller schools. There has been no benefit to them whatsoever. Okay. And so you need to, I'm not trying to say like find the silver lining, but they need to find certain pitches, right? In order to just get talent and replenish talent consistently. And I think that one of those pitches could potentially be, and it sucks that they have to do this. Okay. It is not good for them and it's not good for the sport, but this is the reality that they're in. Their pitch has to be, hey, look at the guys who've made money off of our roster after playing well here. Look at the guys and look at where they've
I know
gone.
what you're saying because you're using the mid-major, like Omaha, for example. They've celebrated Frankie and Markel and JJ. You don't get that in college football. I don't see like those tweets of, I don't see, first name's Tim, the head coach at North Dakota State. You don't see him quote tweeting Marty of "Go be great."
Sure,
I don't know. It's a weird, it's a weird dynamic that I don't know enough about, like how guys leave or whatever. It's you.
But you might have to transition into that. Like that might have to be something you're comfortable with. That might have to be something that, and it
Pulisic.
It sucks that you have to do it. I'm not a fan that they have to do it, but it's the times and with the rules, it is just completely handicapped them and has not helped them whatsoever. And so you have to adapt and do things that may not be, you're not comfortable with, or may not be right, or people that may not agree with. But I think that this is something when you see a guy from your roster go off and make money and go to the Power 5 level that a lot of people want to do. And the fact is more so people want to do that than go and play for your school. That's something that you have to transition into recruiting guys.
And there's also the other factor of money. All right.
Yeah.
North Dakota State has a good NIL, but North Dakota State, by the way, their NIL is not as good as Omaha's.
Really?
Yes.
Basketball.
So you have, I can pluck you off a roster because I can pay you.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough for FCS. I wonder what the future of FCS football is, because the North Dakota States and the South Dakota States of the world have to entertain. Do we make the jump to go play Mountain West football? We would not be Power 4, but we would still be in FBS football.
That would, well,
I mean, those are questions because the Summit League and the Missouri Valley Conference for football are combining.
I don't want to
and then grab the
exaggerate
two
and say
Montana
that would be
schools.
the death of FCS football. But if South Dakota State and North Dakota State went to the FBS, that would,
Well,
discussed on this show.
Dan Jackson, when he was on the show, when he was interviewing for South Dakota State and he was at New Mexico where he just left Idaho, he had to think, what is the future of FCS football?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Will there be a future? Now, at South Dakota State, there will always be a future because they do invest and they are successful and stuff. But it's a scary time when, look at, and I don't know, you don't follow South Dakota football. South Dakota, which was in the Final Four of the FCS last year, they, after their spring football, their roster got fleeced. Like they were going to be probably a top 3 team.
Sad.
They got fleeced.
Yeah.
And the guys are going, like they're the big offensive lineman. I think it's Joe Cotton. He's going to be starting at Cincinnati when Nebraska sees him. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back. Steve Sipple will join us coming up after the top of the hour. Brian Edwards as well. Later today, Pat Stewart, the new GM of Nebraska football, will speak to the media for the first time. Go in depth.
evaluate money.
How much money do you have, Pat? How much do you need?
Hey, Coach, Matt McMaster, 1620 of the Zone here. What's your football budget looking like?
Better than it used to be, Matthew.
Hey.
It's Gary and Matt on 1620 of the Zone. All right, if a Ohio State Buckeye is taken in the first round, there's probably a pretty good chance that somebody from Ohio State will go in the first round, right?
I don't know.
Could be 2, could be none.
Could be 3, hypothetically. Simmons, Jackson, and Henderson. I'll tell you this right now. I think I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, picks 1 through 15.
Yeah.
Once pick 16 happens, I have no idea who is going where. I could probably tell you what positions are being drafted. I could have no confidence in any of this guy specifically going to this team because it's just that's how this draft is.
So if Ohio State does have one of those guys go, I think that'll be 10 straight years they've had a first-round pick.
It'll be in the back half for sure. It'll be in the 16.
But they still have a
32.
first-round pick.
That'd be incredible. Damn, 10 years in a row. 9.5 is the over-under for Big Ten players to be drafted in the first round. 14.5 is the over-under for SEC players drafted in the first round.
All right, I like this competition. I wonder who ESPN will favor. The no-brainer pick on the connection will be Grant to the Chargers at 22. Might have played for the guy that's now the head coach.
Nope.
All right, here is John. John, thanks for the call. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Gary. I just wanted to get your thoughts on UNO removing Carrie Banks as the women's basketball coach.
It was probably time.
Yeah. I just didn't know since you're around the program if you heard anything or know anything about the possible future as well.
I don't know about the possible future. I know that if you go by some of the successful women's coaches they have now, they were not high profile, but boy, they've turned into really good coaches, whether it be volleyball or softball. And I imagine Adrian will go that route. But just nothing off the floor. It was on the floor performance, and that's why they decided to move on. But they need to find, and John, thanks for the call. They need to find a way for Omaha women's basketball to be relevant in this town. That people go to the games, people talk about it. There's a connection. They've had some good players, but Carrie was good in March. She just wasn't good in November, December, January, and February.
Yeah.
But when they get to Sioux Falls, she made 2 finals up there. But it's also a conference where South Dakota State is a wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Oral Roberts is pretty good, but if you have a good coach, Oral Roberts' coach got plucked by Arkansas. I think they need to find somebody that has a local connection. Carrie was hired during the COVID shutdown by Trev, and Carrie was an assistant at Ohio State, and she drove all the way to Omaha. And so her and Trev walked around the campus when it was closed because COVID was going on. She was hired during COVID. Staff and roster retention were not good.
Mm-hmm.
Having a presence in Omaha where we've got really, really good girls high school basketball, that there are more players that are on the Summit League level than are on Nebraska Creighton level.
Yeah.
That you should be able to recruit locally and have some success. So I think they will go with a model where it won't probably be a big name, but it'll be somebody that fits, that has had success at Omaha. Chris Crutchfield, he had never been a Division I men's head basketball coach when they hired him. But it was time. Jimmy, you spent a little time around that program.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Grace Cape. She was one of my favorites, but unless
she's in the portal, by the way, along with the entire friggin' roster.
Jeez.
I think they have 2 players that are on the roster.
That's crazy.
And now the portal is closed. So you can still get players. I don't know.
Including your own.
I don't.
Can you?
I don't think.
No.
They have the good players that went into the portal, I think, have
found
picked a
homes.
spot. Yeah. So.
But Adrian will make a good hire. That I feel confident.
It's
done
a
great
good
job.
women's basketball conference. It's a conference where, look at the South Dakota head coach has had success, went to Nebraska, had success, went to West Virginia, now in Minnesota. I don't think Aaron will ever leave South Dakota State, even though he's had ample opportunity, because they have won, 60 plus straight games. But the head coach at KC, she went to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Head coach at Oral Roberts, I just mentioned, she went to Arkansas. So you can sell that as if you come here, just like you sold Chris Crutchfield.
Yeah.
You come here and you have 3 or 4 good years, the door opens up to better jobs. I think that would be my selling point. All right, Steve Sipple's coming up the next hour. It's the next to last day in Lincoln for spring football. They practice today, and then they get together with Husker games coming up on Saturday.
Will he catch a punt?
Sip
Yeah.
out of the jugs machine?
If anyone were to be a part of the media challenge, I feel like it would be Stephen M. Sipple.
Now, he has to be careful here.
Yes. Because
Good job,
if
Jimmy.
he gets injured,
Oh,
I mean, I imagine his deductible is pretty high.
I mean, it's not like he's, Steve Sipple's knocking it out of the park.
All right, we'll do that coming up in the last hour. Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, so not only Ohio State, if they get a first-round pick, it'll be 10 straight years. Alabama is at 16 straight years. Campbell, Booker, yay, nay?
Locks, both locks.
Okay, so they'll go to 17.
Campbell is going to be the steal of the draft. I know a lot of people have injury concerns, but he is awesome.
Georgia will make it 8.
Yeah,
Because
easily.
Walker will go. Michigan will make it 7.
Yep.
Florida, Oregon, USC have 5 straight years where they've had a first-round pick.
So
One of those will continue or should.
So Oregon should.
Mm-hmm.
Does USC claim Jackson Dart?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just throwing it out there.
No.
Throwing it out there.
How many people remember that he used to be in the USC program?
Probably zero. Very
Remember
limited
OJ? Do
amount.
not
That's a good
remember
recall
Jackson
there.
Dart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Clemson, OU, Texas.
Clemson. Oh.
No.
No.
OU? No. Texas? Yes.
Texas for
They have
sure.
dudes.
Texas
Texas
is gonna
had
have
multiple
a lot.
guys draft in the first round.
Golden. Jade Brown is going to be
Bevo might even
pretty
sneak
good
in there.
corner as well.
Yep,
oh,
and then-
Oklahoma. I didn't think about Oklahoma. Oklahoma isn't
Many
gonna
aren't.
have
That's
one.
part of the problem.
No,
Wow.
No. Steve Sipple is going to join us here in a little bit in your coffee shops this morning. You're probably talking about that judge that maybe killed Nebraska's 60-place scrimmage on Saturday. No. But the discussion about spring games and how it is currently the current state, it makes me appreciate around here that we're different. People don't understand us when it comes to our football passion. We're different, and that's okay. And I'm going to put it on a bumper sticker because the spring game means something to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it means something to the fans because they want to see football. Okay? We're just different around here. We look at spring football, and we have for the longest time by the way we buy tickets and go to the games.
People like football here.
Than most places.
Yeah.
And the one thing always about spring games, when it was a normal game,
Sure.
is you can tell the places that are super passionate about football because they'll put 90 in their stadium in the fall, and they're going to put 60 to 70 in the spring for an exhibition game. But as we get through whatever is going to happen now and whatever rosters look like and whatever the calendar looks like and whatever the spring portal looks like, is what is more likely to happen? The spring game comes back where it is a quote-unquote red-white game, or Colorado and Syracuse get their wish and it's an opponent that is involved. You can also say neither one of those are likely. It's going to go to the OTAs, and y'all are going to be SOL.
So,
because this will be I think this will be a discussion among coaches in the offseason on what do you do with spring football moving forward.
I do think that I would love to get a coach from when spring games were a really big deal, when 70,000 people were coming to the games, and ask him
to celebrate his 85th birthday.
A couple.
Do you think that during the spring game your team was getting exponentially better? Was that more so was that an actual progression thing? Was that looked at as a, hey, because we had the spring game, these guys developed, right? Because I think nowadays with there will be a limit. There will be some limit. It's all about development. It's all about maximizing your roster spots, especially with the increased amount of games that you're going to be playing. It's all about depth. So it's all about, practicing hard and getting your players better, and always has been. So because of all of that, I think sooner rather than later, you will have joint practices between teams like Syracuse and Colorado, because we are moving closer and closer to being NFL-like, right? Every step we take, you get more of an NFL model. And one of the biggest things to come out recently in the NFL is these joint practices, and the fact that, yes, there are fights there. That's what we know the most about, like the viral Twitter videos and whatnot, and teams not liking each other. But there's a reason teams do it year in and year out. And it's because they believe it's a major benefit to do those joint practices. And so I think that is sooner rather than later. I can see the NCAA saying, hey, as long as they're not in your conference and you don't play them in the X amount of years, you can have a joint practice.
I was trumpeting 3 years ago. I was like, this is going to be so cool. Nebraska and South Dakota State can play in the spring. It'll be really, really neat. Yeah. Here's the other part that, I when he announced that what Nebraska was going to do, and he said because of tampering, I said that's BS.
Yeah.
I wish he would have said this. And this is a factor on Saturday that I don't know if it would be addressed today. Should have just said, we don't have numbers.
Yeah.
The thing about the spring game is you would be able to have at least 3 offensive line units.
Yeah.
If you had a regular spring game this year, I don't think you would have been able to have 2 full units. Now, there's another thing in play now that they've adjusted, and he's going to, they're going to play 60 snaps.
Sure.
Nebraska, how many wide receivers are playing on Saturday? Because they've got some issues with some injuries with wide receivers.
Yeah.
Or they've got, as it was said, soft tissue issues that they're not like, we're not messing around with that. Like, I know they got an abundance of wide receivers, but how many wide receivers are going to be available? So I think it's a numbers thing.
Yeah.
And when you're going to be 105 or 120 or whatever it's going to be, you're going to say after a hard season, hey, why don't you just take the spring off?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and have that surgery? We got a long off season to get you ready.
Sure.
So the next thing you show up and you got, man, we only have 11 offensive linemen to go through spring. Hey, just because we're just going amongst ourselves, no problem. You're telling me we got to play a game with 11 offensive linemen?
Well, also, too, there was another great excuse to be made. You had two guys on your team that you were looking to be big contributors next season in Blyke Hill and Demetrius Bell, and they ended up not just getting hurt, but it completely derailed their season. And so you could have just said, hey, not only do we have they are banged up even to begin the spring on the offensive line, and that's not even considering the amount of spring injuries they had. But then you could have just said as well, hey, man, we had two guys that we were counting on that because we played this game got hurt. And yeah, we understand the importance of playing in scrimmages and having these scrimmages, but if we can reduce the amount of risk we have in terms of injuries, we're going to do that. I just think that instance was Matt Rule saying the quiet part out loud. And
that we are getting rid of turf?
Well,
that started the conversation.
Sure. Well, the quiet part being the tampering. The quiet part being, hey, we don't want our game to be televised because then that's an opportunity for more teams to watch our players and come and get our players.
And then Oregon turned around and said, we can give you all the access you want.
Well, Oregon did that because the fact of the matter is that you can pluck guys off of Oregon and Oregon can replace them pretty quickly with not only the talent that they have, but the money that they have and the recruiting power that they have, right? It's a fact. Nebraska
they also have, I don't think their spring ends until next week. So you would be past the window.
The window of So what is the what is the limit on, are we going to get to the point where everybody has to do a spring at the same time to correspond with the window? Because I did think of that. There are some teams who schedule their spring super early where they get completely through it and then they're done before a week before the portal even opens. And then you have teams like Nebraska where your spring isn't done and then the portal's already closed.
Didn't Hawaii begin spring ball at the end of January, maybe?
Lord.
There was some school that started really early.
Yeah.
I think the voices in college football from coaches in the calendar, because it's going to be a longer season, will ask to have OTAs so that you get more of a buffer before you ramp it up.
Yeah.
And you can still go in June. Now, if you're also going in June, what does the recruiting calendar look like where you could have prospects on campus and they're watching you go through workouts, and then you take July off and then you get going in August? But also, what happens? I mean, this is fluid.
Yeah.
What happens when the NFL goes to 18 weeks? They're not putting a game on the back end. They're going to go on the front end. So they're going to take over Labor Day weekend, which has been week one of college football. Does college football have to go a week earlier so they get that window all to themselves? It's going to be a fluid situation, but I think more coaches want longer time from the end of the season to when they start going through activities. But the problem with the sport, as we all know, who decides that?
Yeah.
Who is the voice that says this is what we're going to do?
It's
and
crazy.
Let's go.
That was going to be my next, I still cannot get over the fact that they were removing all of these rules and they're getting ready for the settlement. And then they go, hey, by the way, we've made all these rules and regulations and changed the rule book, but we don't have a governing body yet. Mm-hmm. We're working on that. How the hell do you go ahead and change all these rules, but not have a body or not have a committee that is going to be making the massive decisions that not only determine people's futures, but now also determine people's checkbooks? Because that's what this does. Now, there's one thing I do have a concern with in terms of the OTA model and the NFL model is that NFL players have played a lot of football, okay? And you get to a certain point where it's okay, for some players, they need training camp to get in shape, not necessarily to become better players. You know what I'm saying? It was talked about
in the NFL.
Well,
I think you're giving me some old school here. I think back in the day it was.
Sure.
Guys train year round now, so I think they're in shape.
Yeah.
So it's not use training camp to get in shape; it's use training camp to get better.
So, so let me rephrase this in a way, because there was something that John Butler said during a press conference that kind of stuck with me. Right? He said that Matt Rule told him that in college you train, right, and in the NFL you coach. Okay, and what that meant to me was college football players, like they need to practice, they need to develop, they need to learn technique, they need to learn how to do this and how to do that. They need like to play more football, right? Where in the NFL, when I hear coach, okay, and I could be wrong here, but when I hear you coach them, I hear more mental, I hear more study, I hear more preparation, I hear more understanding, which it's not necessarily about like practicing and playing and playing and playing and playing. It's more so about, all right, how do I put myself in this situation to succeed? And so there is a concern on my part that if you develop more of a NFL type training camp schedule and it's less about the playing of the football, that college football players won't get as developed in terms of being football players as they need to be. If you're following here, like
but they would still go through like the spring 15 practices. They would just be like a month or 6 weeks later.
I just, that's what I'm saying. I hope that's still the case. I hope there's not like a ramping back or like a scale, not ramping back, a scaling back of the football that they're playing or a scaling back of the practices that they're having. That's my point. I think it's important that you still have the same amount of practice, the same amount of football, the same amount of everything.
I don't think you would have that worry.
Okay.
Because I don't think coaches would agree if you took away their practice.
Well,
now there's the other advantage of moving back your camp is, what about the high school kids? So they're done with high school. Now they can join you on June 1. What about your portal guys that have to finish schoolwork before they can join you? They can come and, because there are not every portal guy is able to show up in January.
Yeah.
They have to finish up some schoolwork.
Sure. Just still, I'm sorry, you say school, and it's just still so funny to me that but
if you're the NFL, don't you love if college would move this forward? Don't you love that their calendar would basically mimic you, and then the players are getting used to playing 16, 17 games? You'd be championing this.
This is what I'm saying. Exactly. College football is becoming more like the NFL, but I still think like you got to make sure that there's still that college football practice mindset of like develop. I just hope that these players, because they're shifting to this more of this NFL type model, don't lose those reps and don't lose that valuable coaching that they need more so than the NFL players.
All right, Steve Sipp. He's taken a lot of reps, mental, physical, whatever else is in the world of Steve Sipple. He'll join us next and profess his love for the Husker games. Thinks this is the best format they've ever done. Red, white, Husker on Husker crime, better. Sip will join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, even though Nebraska will not have a first-round draft pick for the 14th straight year, they will still always have the moment 31 years ago when the Indianapolis Colts selected Trev Alberts, and we got one of the best moments in draft history. Who in the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? Now we say, who in the hell is Steve Sipple? Bad man joins us now from On 3, 93.7 The Ticket. Good morning. You fired up for the draft? What are you fired up more for, the draft or the Husker games?
Husker games.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I've almost come around to it feels like a spring game. So I have legitimate, I don't know, I'd ever call it excitement, but I'm interested, thank God. And I'm good with it all at this point.
Did your opinion change the other day?
Yeah, it did. It's evolved. I mean, it changed last Thursday, then it changed again Tuesday. It changed Thursday when Matt Rule said that,
Okay.
you know, in his words, they're going to put the ball down and there's going to be second and third string players playing. Then it changed a little bit more on Thursday when it became evident it's going to be four quarters. 4 quarters with between quarters. There's going to be activity that we haven't seen at a spring game. But I'm open-minded about all that. I just know that there's going to be 4 quarters, 60 plays or so. There's going to be a lot of players that I'm interested in seeing. A lot of players. I mean, not all. We're not going to see the starters. I understand that, but there's still a lot of players that are meaningful, and we'll get a chance to look at it. T.J. Lateef, for instance. I'm interested. Connor Booth, the running back from Wahoo. What's that look like? That's why I wonder all spring. Now these springs where we don't see practices or not much of practice and we don't see scrimmages. So, yeah, this is very meaningful to me.
Between what quarter will you be partaking in the Husker games?
Oh, no, I'm not partaking. There are.
Why did you bow out?
I'm 58 years old. I mean, it's not that.
You're still in good shape. You are still in really good shape. I see you twice a week. I can speak on this. You're in good shape.
Well, that's nice of you to say, but Matt,
Thank you.
It's just not an activity for a 58-year-old. Now, if I would say it's not an activity for a 38-year-old. So, 20 years, I'm past that deadline. Now, there are some guys going out there, though, that are in their 40s. So I think Kevin Suits is going out there.
Very athletic.
Yeah.
10, 11. Sean Callahan is going out there. Mitch Sherman. And Damon. Damon's. Yeah, come on, Damon.
He's a friggin' ringer. He did that for a living.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Damon's also 50, though. So I almost feel kind of guilty like he's doing it.
Yeah, but I've seen him in the gym, and he used to play slow pitch softball and flag football. He still has it. And also he doesn't want to embarrass his son.
Right.
Yeah.
So, no, I just thought it would be a little much for me.
Okay. All right. We'll find something else for you to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was so excited. You kind of just ruined that because I am going to the spring games, and I feel like my main event was watching you go and catch punts. But hey, you talk about some of the players that you are excited to see. How do you feel about the quarterbacks not named Dylan Raiola? What are you looking for? And, do you think your opinion could be adjusted based on what you see from Lateef and Davia and Jalen Gramstad?
Yeah, well, now I don't think we're going to see Gramstad. Rule said you're not going to see number 2. He says 4 will play. 4 will play, which is informative, right? I mean, It tells you Gramstad has elevated himself to a part where he's not going to participate, which tells you he's number 2.
Yeah.
And now that's subject to change, of course. But as far as what we are going to see, come on, T.J. Lateef's a scholarship quarterback at Nebraska. I mean, I want to see what that looks like. It should look good. Just that fact alone. I've seen him in those, Matt, we had those opportunities to watch the early stages of practice.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, look, I like the way he looks. He's a smooth operator. He looks good physically. Now I don't expect him to look like Vince Ferragamo right out of the gate, but I think he could.
It's his birthday today.
Is it Vince's birthday? I think he could look. and there's not a lot of pressure on him, so he can go out
Yeah.
there and cut loose and look good. And of course, I'm interested in Marcos Davila. He didn't get an opportunity at Purdue really to do anything. Never played, but he is a highly acclaimed recruit. You know, when you go back to his Texas high school days. So those two guys, and then Bodie Sukup and Luke Longbow will also play. But I'm interested in all that picture. The quarterback picture is always important.
What about the linemen that were highly recruited but haven't gotten their full opportunity yet? Like a guy like Grant Bricks. I think a lot of people will be watching him on Saturday, what he looks like physically, where he's playing on the offensive line, and then how he performs. Because it's like, we had a year to get acclimated. Now it's kind of go time to start figuring where you are on the depth chart and maybe grabbing some snaps here or there.
Oh, Bricks is one I think I laid out 5 guys on Husker Online. Well, I know I did. And he wasn't one of them, but he would be someone I'm very interested in. I think, double check, I think he wears number 66. I'd like to see if Bricks is playing guard or tackle and what that picture looks like for sure. And again, we could name probably 15 guys that I'm really, I'll try to watch. Of course, Bricks would be one of them. I think Brock Knutson would be one of them. I think those guys would play. They would fall under. Yeah, they would. They'd fall under the category of second, third stringers. It's hard to know exactly where the line is. For instance, okay, Coach Rule says second and third stringers. Well, does that mean is that Mekhi Nelson? I mean, will we see Mekhi Nelson?
Will we see Ives?
Probably a third stringer, but you need him. I don't know. I hope you see him. See, I mean, that'd be an example of a guy we haven't seen a lot of, and here he is. What if he gets 12 snaps? You'll have a much better idea walking out of that stadium about your third string running back if he's playing and gets a sizable chunk of carries.
Let's stick on the running backs here, Mr. Sipple. They're going after Marty Brown in the transfer portal. Does it raise some concern for you that they're going after Marty Brown in the portal that they haven't established? Like, would you feel better about the current running back room if they decided, hey, we don't need Marty Brown, we're totally fine with what we got?
No, I don't. I don't have that conversation in my head because I think, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm not in the camp that says they have enough there. I think they need him. It's not dire, but you have a starter who's obviously tested, had 908 total yards of total offense last year, and we know who that is. Emmett's Emmett, and he's going to probably be your number one. And then it's just a bunch of guys you don't really know about.
Yeah.
You can't really say about Quentin Ives, 6 carries, 7 yards last year. Mekhi Nelson, he'd probably be the third string guy. Connor Booth, Jamarian Parker. I don't even know if you'll see Jamarian Parker. He's been hurt. And the true freshman. So no, I don't think you have enough. Not dire, but not enough. That's just my opinion. So to me, it's try to get Marty Brown within reason, though. If there's a team that drives up the price, to something that's not reasonable, you don't have to do it. And I like the way Rule approaches this stuff. He stays within reason. And now we'll see how it all stakes out. Marty Brown's probably in town right now, and Nebraska's definitely in the picture. And it probably just becomes this negotiation, Then I just don't, and I don't know how to size that up. I don't have that information.
Do you think there's also part of, and this isn't, Rule, he praises Scott Frost, but this is a Scott Frost overlook that he might have to pay for. Is he wasn't even here. He didn't even know who Marty Brown was. And, Nebraska did not, show love maybe as Marty Brown would have liked. But now you got a brand new head coach who is like, hey, I'm meeting you for the first time. And you maybe got somebody in the camp that is going, hey, back in the day, Nebraska overlooked this, and now you want us now?
Let me interject. Nobody recruited him from the Power Five. Nobody. I mean, he was.
I know, but Nebraska kids, and it wasn't like Marty was. I mean, Marty was one of the best, if not the best, running back in the Metro his senior year. You know that they're like, hey, how come Nebraska's not looking at me?
Yeah.
Whether right or wrong, because you're right, Sip. Miami of Ohio and Ball State were the only two that offered him a scholarship.
Right. There might be a level. There might be some of. I would think that conversation in Marty. I would hope it passed in his head.
I hope so. I hope so too, because there's nothing Rule could do. Because hey, we're new. This is a new relationship. But when people get in guys' heads, they promote that stuff when you're trying to compare the schools. I think it's BS, but it's one of the things you got to overcome when you're recruiting in the portal of an in-state kid that maybe you didn't give a second look to, and he wasn't. The staff wasn't even here.
Yeah, they might say that. Where was like Miami might say, where was Nebraska when you were coming out? So yeah, they could use. I suppose they could use that. Hey, I think they'll do what they. I think they'll stay within reason on it, but I think that there's a reason they brought him in here.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that he came back from Miami and he's still going to take visits. Now, I know he talked about taking all 4, but that somebody like Cal or K-State didn't push up and say, hey, Thursday, can you be in Berkeley or Manhattan? He said, no, Thursday I'm going to be in Lincoln.
Right. God, I would hope that he would size up the Cal situation and just say, I don't want to get that. I mean, Cal's a mess right now with Rivera and just, Rivera, who's running the show. There's a big battle there. There's boosters that are saying that Rivera needs to run the program, and I think I hope it wouldn't be Cal where he goes. Good God.
Not the biggest endorsement for Cal football there. Hey, Sip, Pat Stewart talks today, the general manager of Nebraska, and there's been a lot said from other people about what his role is and what he's doing and the evaluation and valuation of talent. But when he talks today, what is the number one thing that you are trying to figure out? What is like the biggest question on your mind as to like what his role is and what are you hoping to know about Pat Stewart after his 15 to 20 minutes of talking to the media?
First of all, it's just in his words, what is his role? In his words, how does he? And I think it'll be really important for him to choose words carefully. And this is how I do it. And then how much is he involved in evaluation, and how much of an adjustment is it for him to come into this world and evaluate from the NFL world? So those are the things. And then, I just want to I don't know, size up presence. And, this is the GM. This is a pretty big, it's almost like $1 million job here now.
Yeah.
Now, Rule did make clear the other day, and he made it very clear that Pat Stewart answers to him, and that Rule is in charge. And I was like, okay, you got that. Those are the things I'm interested in.
So Pat Stewart was hired for Nebraska football in the new day, Nebraska football, how you have to operate, to take some stuff off the plate of other people. I believe that Dana Holgorsen was hired for Dylan Raiola. Could you make a case that Phil Snow was hired for Matt Rule?
Phil Snow was hired to take some
to help him navigate right now back in college, because I think it shows you a lot about Matt Rule's appreciation for people that have helped him, because if you hear him talk about Phil Snow, I mean, you would think that was his dad, Sip.
Yeah, but I think Phil Snow serves a key purpose, though, right? This is not just a mascot you're leading around, right?
I would hope not, to those young defensive backs like Amari Sanders, who loves Phil Snow.
Right. This is not just that. What I'm getting at is, that was probably poor choice of words in a sense, but it's not just a symbolic hire. This is a functional. This is a very critical part of the staff. And the way it's been portrayed to us is it's critical, and they've sold it that way very well. I like the idea. I mean, the way it is in my mind, at least, is you have this incredibly experienced and intelligent defensive coach who can size up the defense at, on a daily basis and determine where do I need to help.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard him helping with the secondary. Then all of a sudden the shift was to the edge guys, and he said himself that he'd walk around. He'd be like a walk around coordinator that can kind of choose his spots as necessary. And I always think more of. It was interesting you asked me the question the way you phrased it, because I've always felt, and you could tell I was sort of caught off guard, so I gave you sort of an insufficient early response. But I always thought of him more as someone that would be helpful to Butler, John, because of Butler's sort of lack of experience running an entire defense. And then you have this guy here that ran defenses at several places, and wouldn't be threatening to John.
Yeah. No,
So
I think that's fair.
I
think it's fair and accurate.
In my mind, it was always, no, this is for John Butler.
Yeah.
And it could be very, very helpful to John because of his those guys that are that age that have been around, they see the big picture so clearly. And John's still a little younger, 53, 51, whatever he is, he's early 50s. And again, hasn't run an entire room very often.
Mm.
And so I think it more about John and Matt.
Mm.
Steve, when I look at this team, I look at Dana Holgorsen, and Gary and I have used this phrase a lot as the head coach of the offense. And I look at Mike Eckler kind of the same way in terms of he's like head coach of the defense. Why do you think that that was the case for these guys and not necessarily the case for Marcus Satterfield and Ed Foley?
Because they're better, and they're more accomplished. And I mean, their track records are better.
Yeah.
Holgorsen was a 13-year head coach. Satterfield had been a head coach, but I think it was at Tennessee Tech. Not the same. It's not the same deal. Marcus Satterfield's not going to be offended by anybody saying that Holgorsen's better. His track record's better. He's done better. And then as far as Eckler goes, Eckler recent success at Tennessee is come on. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
He did what he did is excellent. Eckler, it's a little different than Holgorsen because Eckler's success, a lot of it has occurred in the last, I'm going to say 5-6 years. It's fairly recent. He made a big decision, and it was about the time he was at North Texas. He made a big decision in his career that he was going to focus hard on special teams and become the best special teams coach in the country. And I don't know who is. I don't know how you judge those things, but
sure.
he's in that conversation at this point. So it's that. Those hires are critical and in a good way. Matt had to kind of, I don't know. It all happened kind of fast, but here we are, and I think the picture looks pretty good.
Yep, I agree. Enjoy Saturday. Enjoy the Husker games, and if there's a late scratch, I expect you to be catching punts out of the jugs machine to take one for the team.
Yeah, that jugs machine that's helpful to that cause, but I'm not. I've already declined. The guys will do a great job.
All right, I tried. Hey, we will see you. We will see you. We will see you on Saturday, my friend.
All right, see you guys.
See you soon.
Stephen M. Sipple, backing out of any physical activity.
He could have week.
Now there is a little bit. There's probably the pride at all because when you're looking up and you're trying to track a punt and the feet maybe don't follow and you fall down and then everybody laughs at you. I get that. That would happen to me. I would embarrass the hell out of myself.
I'd catch that thing.
I would not do that to the family name or this radio station.
Certainly somebody from the zone could be nominated to take part.
They don't. Hey, They don't like Omaha people.
I'm learning.
I didn't get an invite.
They don't involve Omaha media.
I would have caught a punt. I would have done
Probably
a great
would.
I
job.
thought they all love you there. Red carpet,
They
cheers
don't know.
treatment.
We have a marathoner on the air here.
You a sub 3 hour marathoner here on the air.
They also think we're just the Creighton station.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So why would you have a Creighton guy come and do something?
Hey, I'm representing. I'm going. Not today.
Brian Edwards. Could Brian Edwards catch a punt out of a jugs machine?
I think so. What do you think Brian Edwards' odds of catching a punt out of a jugs
I've
machine?
met Brian Edwards in person before. I think he'd decline. He'd be like Sip.
Minus,
I'm good. You know what? I enjoy watching.
plus money or minus money?
I had a friend like that once.
Would be taken off the board. He's coming up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, time to talk to our good friend, Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider. It is Christmas for the NFL Draftniks. We have all kinds of playoffs going on as we welcome in B. Edwards. Good morning.
Good morning, fellas. What's happening?
You know what? Hey, NFL draft, so it's like one of the top sporting moments of the entire calendar. Let's get right into this.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Shedeur going, according to you, when you look at the odds on his slot in the draft first round of 32 picks?
Well, I like the bet under 21.5. I just saw FanDuel move their price to minus 132. I bet it at minus 135. Shop around, hopefully get the best price. I don't think he goes any further. He won't drop beyond the Steelers at 21. I don't think, but I mean, I could totally see somebody taking him a lot higher, or somebody trading into the first round, or that they may already have a first round pick, but trading another pick to get to use it on the quarterback if they picked earlier. And all these anonymous quotes, and that can all be smoke screens. I mean, every draft we have all this, and it could all be smoke screens. He might go in the top 10. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. I said the same thing about Jaden Daniels last year. We'll see how it plays out, but I think he's a top 10 pick in my opinion. But that doesn't mean he'll go there. But I don't think there's any way that he falls less than or further down than 21.
Hey, let me ask you. It's not on your card, but because his name is moving up on the quarterback draft board, and a lot of the video that's being shown is when Ole Miss and Florida played. What's your thoughts on Jackson Dart?
I like him a lot. I did like how he played at the Swamp. He played terrible that day, right? And he was just awful that day with his interceptions. But I do think he's good, and I think he's that kind of guy that, he is not scared to run it. He's not scared to take on a linebacker, which may or may not be a good thing in the NFL from a quarterback. But, he's a tough runner and has deceptive speed and mobility, and he's got a big arm, and he had a lot of success in college. But, didn't play good at the Swamp, which is, probably the biggest game of his career, unfortunately. But, I still think he's good. I don't think he's on Shedeur or Cam Ward's level, but I think he's good. I think I'm not going to say he's going to definitely be a starter, for 10 years, but he'll get a chance to be a starter, and we'll see how it goes.
Hey, this line, okay, so let's go to the NBA, and one of the playoff games tonight, Oklahoma City and Memphis. I think this line for game 3 was set at the start of the fourth quarter the other night. I saw it at 9. It's been 9.5. You see it at 8.5. I mean, come on. This is not going to go well for the Grizz tonight, right?
I don't think so. So it's up to 10 at Circa and South Point,
wow.
And a few offshores. DraftKings is still 8.5, or at least that's what I'm showing, that it's at 8.5, at least on my odds feed. I'm not on the DraftKings website, but I'm good with it up to 10. So Oklahoma City's won 11 in a row over the Grizzlies. They're 10-1 against the spread in that stretch. 8 wins by double digits. So they've beaten them all 6 times this year, both straight up in ATS. The margin of victory this year in the head-to-head is 19, 51, 21, 17, 13, and 24. OKC's last 15 on the road, 14-1 straight up. Their last 12 on the road, 11-1 against the spread. Memphis has been horrible at home since February 8th, 6-10 straight up, 3-13 against the spread. Give me OKC. I got 8.5 yesterday, but I would do it all the way up to 10.
The Pistons and the Knicks play tonight. So for Giants fans, the draft is going on and the Knicks are playing at the same time. They're not in the Palace. They're not in the Silverdome. They're at the LCA. This series is 1 game apiece. Tibbs complained about the officiating. We sometimes see a reversal of calls go your way. But the Pistons at home in front of that crowd, how does game 3 go?
I like the Pistons. I think it'll be a good game. I think the Pistons will win a close one. They've won 4 of the last 5 head-to-head with the with the Knicks, both straight up and ATS. And the reason why is Cade Cunningham. During those 5 games, he's averaged 31 points, 8.4 assists, 6.4 rebounds, 1.0 steals per game. He shot 52.7% from the field. And of those 5 games, 4 of them were at MSG, and the only one they lost, they had an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter. Back at home, where they only one of the last 5 that were at home, but they won 115-106. I like Detroit to win outright. Give me the pick.
All righty, Brian, you have the UFC here for this week, UFC Kansas City, where, if we're being honest, for a fight night card, it's pretty damn good. I mean, anytime you get to see Ian Machado Gary on free TV, it's always a steal. He'll take on Carlos Pratis, and then you got a couple other really interesting matchups here. Giga's fighting. That's always fun to see him. He's electric. Michel Pereira is fighting Magomedov. That's another really good fight. Pereira, the showboat. And then you got a pretty interesting welterweight bout with Randy Brown and Nicholas Dalby, two guys who are trying to move up and be some contenders. How are you looking at this card here?
Okay, so I like Ian Gary a lot at minus 125. He's 15-1 in his career. His only loss, he's coming back from it, but it was against the best welterweight in the world, in my opinion. That's Shavkat. It was a very close decision. Gary took the fight on short notice, not super short notice. I think it was like a month, but anywho, that was a very close fight. Shavkat's not the champ, but he was a 2-1 favorite over the champ until that fight got nixed, and it's still, the odds are still up, and it takes place between now and December 31st. So anyway, I think Gary, the only person that's beat him is the best welterweight in the world. Prates is not the best welterweight in the world. He's on a good run, but this price is too cheap. So now I like it big, but I'm only going to bet 1 unit on it ahead of time. That's because I'm going to have it as the last leg of a parlay, which I'll get to in a second. But let's also do a straight bet on Michel Pereira, minus 135. He's 8-1 in his last 9. It should be 9-1 in his last 10, but he got a DQ loss to Diego Sanchez. That was actually, I mean, he did it, but anyway, he was winning that fight big time. So anyhow, Pereira minus 135. And his opponent is 3-2 in the UFC. Anywho, then let's go a 3-leg parlay with Randy Brown starting it. Then let's go David Onama. And then let's go Gary. Now, depending on what prices you get, that should be anywhere from a plus 350 to plus 403 payout.
Wow.
So if the first 2 hit, then we'll be basically, let's say it's just a plus 350 payout, and we've already got a unit on Gary. So we're looking at winning 4.5 units on Gary. So at that point, we would hedge back a unit and a half on blah blah blah.
Magomedov.
No, Prates.
Oh, Prates.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Tongue tied because he's fighting Gary.
Yeah.
But if one of the first 2 legs do not hit, if Onama or Brown don't hit, and so the parlay's off the table, then make Gary like a 2-unit play rather than a 1-unit play. I hope that all makes sense.
It does. And then we'll finish because Oklahoma City plays tonight. We just mentioned that. What do you like there with the Thunder? Clippers and the Nuggets tonight. That's a key game. And then Boston's going to Disney World up 2-0. But this is I like where you're going here with this NBA moneyline parlay.
Yeah, I don't want to lay the 5.5 for the Clips, but I do like them to win. So let's put them in a moneyline parlay with OKC and then Boston tomorrow finishing it. Not the best payout, but it's more than even. It's plus 176 from the prices that I use. So, OKC, Clippers, and Boston moneyline parlay should get back around plus 175, hopefully.
Oh, great stuff. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the draft and all the playoff action.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great weekend.
See you, Brian.
Brian Edwards. UFC Kansas City is coming up on Saturday night at the T-Mobile Center down in the Power and Light District. All right. You're happy with Genty? Elated with Genty? Disappointed with Loveland?
I don't want to trade up.
Okay.
Just take Tyler Warren to 10. Let Tyler Warren get to 10, and let's just take him. Let's go home happy. The guy is a weapon. You can use him anywhere. Him and a Ben Johnson offense would be chef's kiss. Now, I'll give one pick. We're doing Take 5 will be a full bet pod today. Full bets on the NFL draft, but I'll give you one pick right here. McMichael Williams plus 250 to number 9 to the Saints. I don't buy that because they got rid of Penning, they're going to get a tackle. The Saints need some edge rushers. Plus 250, McMichael Williams to the Saints at number 9.
I'll take Harmon or Pierce at 31, or I would trade up. Enjoy the draft tonight. I'll give you a full update tomorrow from Richie's party, who just texted me. He's in the gym. He didn't sleep well last night. He has the rumors of us trading back in the first round for a quarterback. Should be a lot of fun. Enjoy the draft. We'll recap the opening round when we rejoin you tomorrow at 6. Thanks for putting up with us. For Jimmy, for Matt, I'm Gary. Crossover's coming up next on 1620 The Zone.